Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 24th, 2025. Is there a way to remove the echo? Okay, perfect. Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 24th, 2025 meeting of the Arlington County Planning Commission. I am Commissioner Tenley Peterson, Chair. Tonight, the Commission will discuss an informational item regarding the Chesapeake Bay Preservation, part of the Comprehensive Plan adopted in 2023. Secondly, the Commission will consider the GLUP Amendment, MTP Map Amendment, and the Site Plan Amendment for the Hotel Pentagon project. Before we begin, I would like to share a few logistical points for all participating joining the meeting remotely or in person. For presenters and speakers joining us through Microsoft Teams, please keep your phones and other electronic devices muted until you are called upon by the clerk. Please turn off the sound to any devices around you to minimize interference. Please keep your cameras off until the clerk announces your name to speak. When called upon, you must unmute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon that is in the meeting command bar at the top of the screen. The moderator nor the clerk have the ability to unmute your mic. Once you have spoken, please mute your mics and turn your cameras off. If you are dialing in by phone to join the meeting, press *6 to unmute. Public speakers will be called upon by the clerk at an assigned time. Pre-registration and email confirmation to speak at tonight's hearing was required. We are not able to accommodate additional speakers. All speakers, virtual or hybrid, will receive a 2 minutes to comment as an individual. Only representatives of a county board-appointed advisory group, committee, and/or commission will receive 3 minutes to comment. A timer will be displayed on the screen if speaking virtually, and speakers in person will follow the timer stationed on the podium. Audio of tonight's meeting is available via phone. If commissioners, presenters, or speakers lose internet connectivity, please reconnect by phone. However, if you are dialing in by phone and unable to see the screen, we will provide you with an audible 30-second warning to wrap up your comments. You will be muted when your time has expired. The meeting chat is active for presenters or commissioners who need technical assistance only. Please do not use the meeting chat for discussion, public comment, questions about agenda items, or requests for further information. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public testimony period. Tonight's meeting will be available for review through the YouTube platform. A link has been provided on the Planning Commission website 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Although the meetings will no longer be a live broadcast, the meetings will be available for review with closed captioning on Comcast Xfinity channels 25 and 1073, Verizon Fios channels 39 and 40, 24 to 48 hours after the adjournment of the meeting. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted on the county website via a link to YouTube as stated. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to the Virginia Freedom of Information Act requirements. So thank you for joining us in this new location. As we had some water issues in Bosman Government Center, I'm glad to see everyone here. And Madam Clerk, can you please call the first item?
Thank you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
No? Can you hear me now? Okay. So over this way. Is that good? There's still an echo.
Does this one work? That's as far as it goes.
Okay, let me just use my outside voice. How about that? Can you hear me okay? Okay. The first item is GP-368-25-1, the General Land Use Plan Amendment for 24A. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I forgot we switched the order of the agenda. The Chesapeake Bay Preservation item, informational item for commission discussion only. This is not a public speaking item. This is an overview of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan, comprehensive plan element that was adopted in 2023, proposed by Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance Amendments. We have Bryce. Bryce, are you presenting this item? Who's presenting this item? Matt.
This will be Joliker from Environmental
Matt.
Services Department.
Who's presenting the item? Oh, Eileen Winquist?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay, I will speak up.
That's
Can you hear me
good.
better now?
Yes.
Is that
A
better?
little louder.
Okay. Yeah, let me just get closer to the microphone here. So.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Well, we wanted to thank you for having us here this evening. We are here to present about some upcoming amendments to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance. but we were also asked to give a quick overview of the related comprehensive plan element, which is the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan. So we will talk about that briefly first, and then talk about the amendments to the ordinance. The Chesapeake Bay Act was passed in Virginia in 1988 and has been updated several times since then. The focus of this early environmental regulation was protecting water quality through land use management. It applies to Virginia localities that drain or where the land area affects the Chesapeake Bay, so it does not apply statewide in Virginia. From that came, on the one hand, a requirement for Arlington County to adopt a local Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, which we did. Oh, sorry. Also coming out of the Bay Act was the requirement to adopt a comprehensive plan element, the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan. Arlington's original plan was adopted in 2001. The Chesapeake Bay Act requires that the preservation plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan, include these elements. So you can see here it includes a definition and a map of resource protection areas, which are 100-foot areas near streams and water bodies that encompass very sensitive and kind of important natural resource areas near those water bodies. It also needs to include criteria to prevent increasing pollution during development, controls for land use, development, and subdivision, and be included in the comprehensive plan and ordinances. So this slide just gives some of the brief elements that are included in our Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan. It includes introduction and some of the regulatory framework, information about Arlington's water environment, some of our natural resources, and then a fairly detailed overview of our Chesapeake Bay and Stormwater Program and various regulations and requirements that we have through those programs. And then also has kind of looks forward to future challenges and changes that might be coming up that would affect water quality and some of the requirements there. So we also wanted to clarify, because there are a lot of different regulations and permits that are part of our stormwater management program. So we wanted to kind of clarify what the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan is and what it is not. So it is completely separate, and it predates some of the more recent regulatory requirements that Arlington has through our stormwater permit, which you may have heard about, which is called the MS4 stormwater permit, and that is issued by Virginia DEQ and is a nationwide program. And then more recently in 2010, there were kind of more stringent requirements enacted by EPA related to the Chesapeake Bay and reducing pollution to the bay. And so again, this Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act and ordinance came, before all of that. So a lot of our stormwater regulations have evolved over the years as our understanding of how certain activities affect water quality as that understanding has increased. So initially the requirement was really, detaining water, and then it moved on to managing erosion and sediment from construction sites, and then, more recently, more of a requirement to slow down runoff and also to filter and clean the runoff and remove pollutants. So there has been a stepwise change through there. So as defined in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act, there are Chesapeake Bay preservation areas, and they have two different components. So as I mentioned, the resource protection area includes at least a 100-foot buffer around streams, wetlands, and other sensitive areas. RPA areas provide a lot of benefits, such as shading the stream or wetland, providing space for flooding, helping to filter runoff, stabilizing soil along the stream, and also providing wildlife habitat. The second area that is designated in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act are called resource management areas, and in Arlington that encompasses the rest of the county. And so through these RMAs, Arlington implements standards on other activities that can affect water quality, such as we'll talk about in a little bit, tree conservation and tree protection. So this is just a kind of a snapshot of the RPA map that is included in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan. The map on the left shows the resource protection areas in red along all the streams and wetlands and other sensitive areas. And the map on the right shows how we actually extended the resource protection area several years ago to include steep slopes that might be adjacent to those sensitive, resource protection area buffers. And that was a policy decision that we made to implement locally. So there are obviously many, related natural resources plans that are referenced in the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan. So the original Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan was adopted in 2001, and so obviously, predated a lot of these other plans, but it was updated in 2023, and so we were able to, kind of update those references and related kind of policy connections. So this slide just highlights some of the important milestones in the stormwater management program. So you can see, from our very first Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance to our first stormwater permit, and then, the stormwater permit that the county receives from the state is updated, renewed every 5 years. And then some of our revisions to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance, our Stormwater Master Plan in 2014. And then we did go through a comprehensive update to our Resource Protection Area map in 2018. So we just wanted to pause here briefly to see if there were any questions from the commissioners. And we just wanted to give, or we were requested, to give this kind of brief overview of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Plan. And then we'll go ahead and talk about the amendments that we need to make to the ordinance. But I wanted to pause see if there were any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions from my colleagues on the plan element? No, thank you very much for that presentation. Please continue.
Okay, great. We will continue. So as we noted, we will be making some revisions to the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance later this year. And so we wanted to just provide some updates on that. So just as kind of a refresher, what we just wanted to highlight what kind of activities require county approval in the resource protection area. And so this slide kind of designates some of those. And so really it's development or redevelopment projects on properties where RPA is present. And then in the development activity may sometimes be within the RPA, but even if it is outside of the RPA, that is something that still needs approval. And then any projects that require building or land disturbing permits on RPA property. And then in addition, any new paved surfaces, new structures, and then also removal of trees greater than 3 inches or fences or retaining walls. So the process for this and for some of these projects may require an exception. Some of them can be reviewed administratively by staff, but some projects may require an exception. And then we do have a water quality impact assessment form that property owners can fill out with information about their project to apply for this kind of review and approval. So now I'm going to turn it over to Kristen. She's going to talk a little bit about the amendments that we're going to be making.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. So why is Arlington updating its Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance now? In 2020, the Virginia General Assembly amended the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Act to incorporate additional protection for trees in RPAs and RMAs during development and to facilitate coastal resilience to climate change. Arlington is required to update our local Chesapeake Bay Preservation Ordinance to incorporate these state amendments. The deadline for localities to incorporate the amendments is September of 2025. Arlington's ordinance has been revised based upon a model ordinance that was issued by the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality and some related guidance documents provided by that agency. We're trying to include the required changes in the most straightforward, simplest way possible so that the requirements can be easily understood and met by Arlington property owners and administered efficiently and consistently by the county. The revised ordinance is currently being reviewed by the state. The new ordinance components focus on two main areas. The tree amendment revisions encourage tree conservation during development and affect both resource protection areas as well as resource management areas. The climate change amendment focuses on coastal resilience and requires a resilience assessment for development in the RPA. We'll share some more information about the ordinance revisions related to these main focus areas. First, let's talk about the tree amendment. The tree amendment focuses on conservation of trees during development, and as I mentioned, applies countywide in both resource protection areas and resource management areas. Despite the title of this slide, it does affect tree removal in resource management areas and tree conservation and resource management areas as well. It strengthens protection for trees by establishing a definition for mature trees and provides extra protection for trees that meet the mature tree criteria. The revised ordinance will define a mature tree as being a canopy tree 12 inches or greater in diameter at breast height, or an understory tree 4 inches or greater at breast height, and will indicate that such trees may only be removed when necessary for the proposed development. The amendment also specifically identifies that trees should be pruned versus being removed when pruning is sufficient. The revised ordinance also specifically requires that when trees are removed from the resource protection area, they be replaced with other trees, and prioritizes trees to be used to reestablish the 100-foot buffer when that occurs as a result of RPA impacts for mitigation. I would note that our current ordinance already protects native vegetation in the RPA and specifically requires identification of impacts to trees that are 3 inches or greater in diameter at breast height. Our current policies also require native species to use for RPA planting. However, the new definition and requirements related to mature trees strengthen protection for those trees during development, both in RPAs and in RMAs, and the specific language requiring trees to be used for buffer reestablishment will result in a stronger focus on tree planting when RPA impacts do occur. There are also changes related to removing dead, dying, or diseased trees or noxious vegetation. Noxious vegetation in the ordinance includes toxic plants like poison ivy and poison sumac that property owners often want to remove, as well as non-native invasive plants like multiflora rose and English ivy. The amendments require a tree condition assessment and written county approval prior to removing a dead, dying, or diseased tree, and approval prior to removing noxious vegetation, as well as a permit for any land disturbance related to these activities. It also requires replacements of removed trees within 6 months. The ordinance has always and will continue to allow tree removal under certain limited situations, including to create access paths, to create sightlines and vistas, to enable shoreline or stream bank erosion control, or to provide protection against concentrated flow. In these situations, tree replacement is also required when the trees are removed. As I said, many of these requirements were already incorporated into county policies, but the amendments will make these requirements under the ordinance. The second focus area of the revisions to the ordinance is on climate change adaptation. For any land development in the resource protection area, a resiliency assessment will need to be completed to assess the potential impacts of flooding, storm surge, or sea level rise on a proposed project with a minimum forecast of 30 years. The Water Quality Impact Assessment form has been revised to include a section for the resilience assessment, but certain properties may need to complete a more extensive site-specific evaluation. We have provided a form for that, which is called Appendix H. If there are impacts to a project or property from flooding, storm surge, or sea level rise, then alterations to the proposed project, conditions, or what are called adaptation measures may be required to limit climate impacts from the project and to limit impacts to adjoining properties. Adaptation measures are defined as nature-based measures that target these climate change impacts. So we've developed a climate resiliency lookup tool, which pulls in data from the state. They have what's called Adapt VA, which is a model that includes data on sea level rise, storm surge. What we have done is created a local tool where property owners can input their address and find out whether any of the 3 climate resiliency factors, flooding, sea level rise, or storm surge, will affect their property. The address that's been inputted here is for the Gulf Branch Nature Center. So if the Nature Center undertook a project, it would input the address. They would identify that their property was in the resource protection area and was also affected by the 100-year floodplain. So how many properties in Arlington will the resiliency assessment affect? There are almost 1,500 properties with resource protection area in the county. Of those, about a third also are impacted by floodplains. Sea level rise and storm surge, because we don't have very much tidal shoreline, affects very few properties in the county. Only 35 properties are affected by the sea level rise, and only 10 properties are affected by storm surge. This slide illustrates the resiliency assessment component that's been added to the Water Quality Impact Assessment form. We have tried to make this a not required or required checklist for filling out the site-specific resiliency assessment. As you can see, if a property has floodplain or is within 15 foot of the floodplain, then it will be required to complete the site-specific resiliency assessment. The same thing occurs if a property is affected by a sea level rise or storm surge. I'm going to turn it over to Eileen to discuss our schedule moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Kristen. Just to wrap up, this information here just kind of gives our schedule for making these amendments. So we have been working since last, I think sort of the mid part of last year through the fall, once we received the model ordinance from the state, to use that to make, proposed revisions to our existing ordinance. And then, as Kristen mentioned, the state is reviewing those materials now. We have shared information with property owners that have RPA on their property. We had a meeting. We created an informational video that's been available, since about February. And last week we had a meeting, and then we will be making some commission presentations, and then also doing some additional follow-up outreach to property owners as the process moves along. We do, as we noted, have a deadline of September for making these amendments. So at this point, we are, I think, aiming for bringing it to the county board for consideration in June. So that would be in May, request to advertise, and June for consideration. So just to kind of give you a general overview. And we have during the community meeting, we did talk to some of the property owners about having some additional information sessions in the fall, just to provide, more resources and information about these changes and how they can, manage the RPA on the property. So I think that was all we had for the presentation. Again, we can, take a moment for any questions.
Questions from my colleagues? I actually do have one question specifically about poison ivy that might be on a homeowner's property in an RPA area, and how easy is it for a homeowner to request that permission to remove that? Like, would they have to pay a fee to fill out this paperwork? Are they going to get approved if they ask? Do they have to have like a special accommodation, like having children who play on the property, or an allergy to poison ivy? Or how easy is it to remove poison ivy from a property?
Yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. I think probably most people will not even realize that they need to contact us, to be honest. But the fact of the matter is that before any removal of vegetation occurs, we're supposed to review that and approve it. The way that the ordinance is written, removal of the poison ivy is an allowable activity. So basically what the county would be reviewing that for would be to ensure that there wouldn't be any negative RPA impacts. So there wouldn't be bare soil and those kinds of things that would cause erosion.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? Yeah, we have Commissioner Lantelmi.
What sort of turnaround time do you anticipate homeowners will have to deal with for, as Commissioner Peterson talked about, noxious weeds, or even for taking down a tree, especially in emergency situations?
Yeah. So we have a 3-day turnaround. If there is truly an emergency, then that kind of situation, we work with homeowners. Typically, if they're in that situation, they have a tree company that they're working with who's documented the condition of the tree, and then they can provide us with that paperwork. But more often than that situation is the situation where homeowners have been watching a tree and they know that they've kind of gotten to the point where they're ready to move forward with removing it and are able to take the time to send us the documentation and get the required written permission in advance.
Does that include, because I had a tree come down on my property in a thunderstorm. When we have situations like that where the tree actually comes down, does that property owner still have to go through the process?
If a tree has been uprooted and already fallen down, then no.
Thank you.
You do not need to get approval for that.
Okay, Commissioner Striner.
I just have one comment. I think the putting it in writing to prune before remove is just it's a little thing, but it makes a lot of sense in terms of preserving the trees and making sure we're maintaining that tree canopy over the years. And so I just really think this is a good plan for little things like that are codifying and making very clear what the county's supposed to do. So thank you for that.
Commissioner Weir?
You mentioned a 3-day approval window. Is there a default action for what happens if it's missed? Is the request deemed approved if the 3-day window is missed, like in some permit systems and in other cities and states?
As of now, we don't have anything like that on the books. As I said, usually most folks are contacting us while they're reaching out to contractors, and it's not an emergency situation, but we do try to be as responsive as we can when emails come in. This is handled via email. It's not like a permit system at the tree removal level. So it's about an exchange of a submission via email and a response.
Okay, I don't see any other questions, so thank you very much to Ms. Winquist and Ms. Jolie Kaur. for your presentations this evening. We appreciate it. And Madam Clerk, can you call the next item?
Okay, I'm back. Yes, working. Can you all hear me? Can you hear me? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Item number 2 is GP-368-25-1, the General Land Use Plan Amendment for 2480 South Glebe Road, the Master Transportation Plan Map Amendment, and the Site Plan SPLA 23-00053, a Site Plan Amendment for Site Plan 111. We have Kevin Lamb, our planner for this project, to present this item this evening. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. So good evening, Commissioners. Once again, I'm Kevin Lamb with the Planning Division. I'm joined by Aaron Schreiber, also with the Planning Division, as well as Bryce Johnson with DES Transportation. And tonight I'll start off with a brief presentation on behalf of staff for the Hotel Pentagon project. So the subject item consists of 3 parts. So the first is a GLUP amendment for a portion of the site to change the land use designation from service industry to medium residential. There's also a master transportation plan map amendment and a site plan amendment to construct up to 531 residential units. So the 5.5 acre site is located at 2480 South Glebe Road in the Green Valley neighborhood. It's bordered by 2 apartment buildings to the north and the east here, some low-density warehouses, and the I-395 on-ramps to the south, as well as the Lomax AME Zion Church and Cemetery to the west. So the church itself is designated a local historic district and listed on the National Register of Historic Places. And currently the site is occupied by 2 hotels. We have Hotel Pentagon, occupying these 4 buildings, and Comfort Inn Pentagon City. So the site currently features 2 existing curb cuts, 2 on Glebe Road here and here, and then a single curb cut on 24th Road. All of these curb cuts provide access to nearly 300 surface parking spaces serving the hotels on the site. So the site is located within the 4 Mile Run Valley Area Plan, which was adopted in 2018 and outlines a future vision for 4 Mile Run Valley. So the subject site is located in Sub-Area D of the concept plan, which recommends preserving existing uses at heights already prevalent in the area, as well as opportunities for redevelopment to multifamily residential use, as I will discuss further in a moment. The area plan also includes design guidelines where new development should reflect the industrial aesthetic of the community by incorporating materials such as brick, concrete, or stone, as well as contribute to safer and more inviting streetscapes. So in terms of zoning, the site is currently zoned RAH Hotel District, which typically corresponds with the medium residential GLUP designation. And then in terms of land use, the site is currently designated both medium residential and service industry. Rather than a request made by the applicant, this GLUP amendment was put forth on the county board's own motion to amend the portion of the site currently designated service industry and changing it to medium residential. The reasons for this is twofold. So first, this GLUP change will bring this portion of the site into alignment with this existing RAH zoning district, which again typically corresponds with the medium residential GLUP category. And then second, it also implements a vision of the area plan, which calls for future land uses of hotel/multifamily at this location rather than wholesale, storage, and light manufacturing uses, which are typical of the service industry GLUP designation. Although this southern portion of the site was rezoned to RAH in 1985 to facilitate construction of the 7-story hotel, for reasons unknown, the GLUP designation was not amended at the time of that rezoning. So for these reasons, this GLUP change is a cleanup measure to reconcile the existing discrepancies between the zoning, land use, and area plan guidance. The project also includes an amendment to the MTP map to add these new streets and street segments proposed by the applicant. It should also be noted that the MTP currently identifies the site as located in an area plan for new streets. So going back to the proposal includes an 8-story multifamily residential building with a rooftop penthouse level, all wrapped around an above-grade parking structure, and this is known as Building E. There are also 4 townhouse and townhouse-style buildings, known as Buildings A through D, and then in total, the project consists of 531 units at a density of around 96 dwelling units per acre. The site also includes 10,300 square feet of dedicated public space, those 3 new streets, as I mentioned, and an area reserved for a potential future street extension for purposes of connecting 24th Road and Shirlington Road. And then lastly, the applicant is requesting the following modifications listed on the screen. So in terms of site layout, Building E occupies the northern portion of the site with its main residential entrance along 24th Road. The parking garage, which is located here, can be accessed from the new segment of Garfield Street as well as the new segment of 25th Court. And then on the southern portion of the site, this consists of buildings A through D. Each of these units features ground floor pedestrian access, as well as a single car garage that's accessed from the new Fillmore Court. And then on the western side of the site, we have the public space here, and then this area, which is reserved for that potential future street extension to accommodate that potential street connection to Shirlington Road. So the rest of this potential street connection is located off-site on private property to the west and is dependent on redevelopment occurring on those properties, although staff does not have a timeline for when redevelopment could or would occur. However, in the event this full street connection is realized, the applicant will grant a public street easement on South Garfield Street, as well as this area for this street extension. And then turning your attention to parking, the project includes a total of 549 parking spaces. Buildings A through D contain 37 spaces at 1 space per unit, and Building E's parking structure contains 512 spaces at 1.03 spaces per unit. So overall, staff finds the project is in general conformance with the 4 Mile Run Valley Area Plan guidance. So here you can see the proposal aligns with the future land use map, which envisions primarily multifamily residential. While the exact placement of the open space and the planned streets does deviate in terms of their proposal, staff finds the proposed placement provides more appropriate buffering and transitions between Building E as well as and the historic church and cemetery to the west. And then meanwhile, in terms of the building height map, this recommends 75 feet for the entire site here, as well as a transitional height area that limits heights to 45 feet in order to ensure appropriate transitions with the church property. So while the project is consistent with this transitional height area, it does deviate from the recommended 75-foot height limit. As proposed, the Building E, is 8 stories and 84.5 feet as measured from the site average site elevation. However, given the site's topography, the portion of the building actually visible above grade in this northwest corner of the site adjacent to the church is approximately 75 feet and 7 stories, which is consistent with the area plan guidance. And to further mitigate the building's height and visual impact on the church property, the applicant also incorporated additional building setbacks, as well as stepbacks on the 7th and penthouse levels, and then also incorporated design treatments on the western building frontage in order to improve compatibility between Building E and the church property. And then in terms of the Affordable Housing Master Plan, the proposal is consistent with those goals and policies. So first, the applicant will meet the base affordable housing requirement of the zoning ordinance through a cash contribution to the county's Affordable Housing Investment Fund or provision of on-site or off-site committed affordable units. The applicant is also requesting 131 additional units above the site plan base density, which is 400 units, or 400 base units. So breaking this down further, the applicant will achieve 80 of these additional units by providing 7 on-site CAFs, as well as the dedication, installation, and maintenance of that 10,300 square foot public space. And then to achieve the remaining 51 additional units, the project will participate in the Green Building Incentive Policy at the 0.25 FAR level, which includes LEED Gold certification. So the SPRC for this project consisted of representatives from the various commissions listed here, as well as the Green Valley Civic Association, the Lomax AME Zion Church, and two nearby townhouse HOAs. So during the 2 SPRC meetings held in November and January, the discussion focused on several key topics such as transportation, architecture and design, and impacts both during construction and once the project is fully occupied. In particular, members raised concerns the project will exacerbate traffic backups on 24th Road, the desire for a traffic light or crosswalk across 24th Road to improve pedestrian safety, ensuring architectural compatibility with the church, as well as mitigating noise and construction impacts to the church, cemetery, as well as its programs. In addition, the Lomax AME Zion Church did submit a letter last week believing the project should not be approved at this time and outlined concerns about the project as expressed during the SPRC process. Staff and applicant have reached out to the church separately for the opportunity to discuss these concerns further and are open to incorporating additional commitments or condition language. I will lastly note we also received a letter on Friday afternoon from the group Arlingtonians for Our Sustainable Future, expressing opposition to the project as proposed. In addressing some of the SPRC concerns about the building's visual and noise impacts on the church, the applicant did incorporate design changes during the public review process. These with fewer balconies to reduce potential noise, darker red brick to better relate to the masonry of the church, and more industrial character for the townhouses as recommended by the area plan design guidelines. So overall, the project is consistent with the area plan and advances several key county goals and policies. So first, the project provides those affordable housing commitments for additional density achieved and the base affordable housing requirement. The project provides streetscape and transit improvements on Glebe Road and 24th Road, as well as new streets throughout the site. The applicant will again dedicate a 10,300 square foot public use and access easement, as well as install and maintain landscaping and pedestrian improvements within this public space. And then lastly, all buildings will achieve LEED Gold certification, and the applicant is participating in the Green Building Incentive Policy at the 0.25 FAR level and providing the following green building commitments. So following the SPRC process, the project was heard at the Transportation Commission, where they chose not to consider the GLUP amendment, instead deferring consideration to the Planning Commission. They did recommend unanimous approval of both the MTP map amendment and site plan amendment, with an amended motion to have the proposal include a mid-block crossing across 24th Road. This recommendation followed discussions regarding ensuring pedestrian safety for bus and school bus riders, since this portion of 24th Road currently has several bus stop locations. In response, staff did analyze this block of 24th Road and does not support adding a mid-block crossing at this time. There are limited pedestrian destinations along this street to benefit from a crosswalk compared to the existing crosswalk at 24th and Glebe. Additionally, the existing conditions on the north side of 24th Road conflict with possible crosswalk locations due to the presence of several driveway entrances and utility poles. However, staff do note that the county ultimately controls this right-of-way on 24th Road and can further explore options for a mid-block crosswalk if necessary in the future. So to conclude, staff recommends adoption of the ordinances listed here. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. An applicant presentation, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Kedrick Whitmore. I'm a land use and zoning attorney with Venable LLP, and we're excited to bring to you this evening our proposal for 2480 South Glebe Road. Great, there it is. So on the next slide, the first thing I want to address is our neighbors at the Lomax Church. They're here tonight. You'll hear from them. We've been engaged with them for quite some time, and we have designed this building with the neighboring church in mind from the get-go, and are continuing to work with church leadership and members, and will continue to do so. On the next slide, you will see kind of an enumeration of some of the concerns. And obviously, this is not meant to be exhaustive, nor am I meaning to speak for them. They will speak for themselves and let you know their concerns. But this is some of the correspondence that we received. We received another letter today, and are continuing to work on adding conditions to do our best to address these concerns. Again, I do not purport to speak for them, but I do think it would be helpful to summarize in some broad categories my understanding of the concerns, and I believe that they fall into three major buckets. One being construction, and ensuring that the construction of this site plan does not have negative impacts upon the historic church or the historic cemetery. That's been an issue from day one that we have looked at. We are working with the church to limit construction hours and to provide additional assurances with respect to the structural integrity of the wall and the shared border, as well as ensuring that the historic church is not damaged or defaced in any way as a result of this. The second is traffic. And as Mr. Lamb noted, we have been to the Transportation Commission. We have proposed a number of traffic mitigations and upgrades in the area that we believe offset any impact from additional vehicular traffic generated by this proposal. The third is in the realm of community benefits. We believe that the community benefits we are coming forward with are something to be proud of. Specifically, we are coming with family-sized affordable units, which we almost always hear is in great need in Arlington County. We're going to have 4 2-bedrooms and 1 3-bedroom affordable unit. In addition to the 7 units that we have agreed to with staff as a result of some of this discussion and communication, we're willing to add an additional 2 affordable units to this project. I know that there are, you'll see here on this list here, there is an ask related to a daycare on the church property. That's not something that we're in a position to provide, but we are willing and ready to help support our neighbors going forward with their existing school of children and other opportunities as time permits. So we'll continue to talk about each of those things, but I wanted to make sure that we acknowledge that up front. I know you're going to listen to everyone who's here. Please do. We take their concerns seriously, and I know you will as well. So on the next slide, a little bit of discussion about the process to get us to where we are today. If you could advance 2. It's frozen. Well, I'll speak to it. The visual is not entirely important. As Mr. Lamb noted, the 4 Mile Run Valley Plan was adopted in 2018. It started way back when in 2015 with the community discussions throughout. After the adoption of the plan, the applicant got control of this site and began its process, both with the county and the community back in 2023. Through that time, in addition to the public review process, we've had a number of meetings with folks in the community. We do appreciate the folks at Lomax meeting with us at their church, giving us some of the history about this icon in Arlington County, and again, sharing with us some of their concerns and desires for the site. So on the next slide, you'll see Mr. Lamb noted that the 4 Mile Run Valley Plan is the applicable planning guidance here. We have designed this project to meet and exceed the goals set forth, particularly with respect to open space, affordable housing, urban site design, stormwater management, and the generalized development of the area. Are we stuck? Okay. Okay, great, that's fine. If we can go to the next slide. This is the existing condition here, and you'll see on the next slide an aerial of the existing site. The property is located just to the east of the Lomax AME Zion Church at the southwest corner of 24th Road South and Glebe Road. You can see the unusual shape. People use the word pork chop a lot. I think this is the best example I've ever seen, so we'll continue to call it a pork chop site. That does make the site design somewhat challenging and has driven some of our decisions here going forward. As you can see in this zoomed in aerial, the site is currently improved with 5 hotel buildings. And then on the next slide are a few street level views of the area. You can see that the conditions are not the best urban environment. There's a lot of asphalt. There's not a lot of green space. On the top right, that sidewalk on 24th Road is difficult to navigate. The next slide, you'll see some of the relationship between the existing hotel buildings and the church. There is, on the southern side of the site, a chain link fence, and as the grade changes, a retaining wall between the hotel site and the church. You'll see that there is screening on the church side between the cemetery and the hotel, but not on the hotel side. The next slide will show you some of the street environment and road environment around the property. And then on the next slide, this is the access that Mr. Lamb referenced. Currently, there are 3 access points into the site, 2 of which basically surround the intersection at 24th Road and South Glebe Road. This is a major contributor to existing traffic in the area and something that we'll be remedying with our proposal. So the next slide, we will move into our overall site design and proposal. Mr. Lamb went over this in detail, so I won't belabor it, but I will note we're very proud to be providing a large number of family-size units, that is 2 bedrooms, 2-bedroom plus den, and 3-bedroom. These are unit types that are in great demand in Arlington County, and we believe will allow folks with growing families or who maybe are not ready for home ownership quite yet to stay in the county and not have to relocate. That's something we're very proud of and happy to bring to the county. On the next slide, you'll see an overview of the site plan. You can see that on the southern portion there, kind of the bone of the pork chop are the townhome buildings, and then in the meat portion is the multifamily. As Mr. Lamb referenced, there is an entrance. We've consolidated off of 24th Road South with a single entrance and significant maneuvering room there on site as that runs the length of the property. You'll also see on the west side, bordering the church, is the 10,000 square feet of public open space that we are proposing to add to the site, and additional green space throughout. I'll also note the future road connection there on the southwest portion of the site. The next slide is essentially the same with some additional pedestrian circulation, so I think I'll move past that. If we go to the next slide, there is some information here about the green space improvements. As you saw in the photographs, the existing condition is heavily concrete with very little in the way of trees or green space. Those trees that do exist are concentrated on the southern portion of the site abutting the VDOT property, so not really contributing to the area and the neighborhood itself. We have sought to consolidate our green space and tree space on the west side of the property, abutting the church, rather than the Glebe Road side. And we've increased the impervious surface, the green space, and the resultant stormwater management dramatically through this proposal. The next slide puts us into a little more information about our relationship with the church and how we designed this building in the context of the historic church. As you can see here, these are the existing conditions. The existing hotel building is set back only 23 feet from the property line with the church. Given the church's 86-foot setback from the property line, that leads to a setback of 110 feet between buildings. If you take a look at the next slide, you'll see we have increased this setback dramatically. As Mr. Lamb noted, this is an area called for redevelopment in the 4 Mile Run Valley Plan. It is an area that shows the setback along the church area, and we've taken that to heart in our design, which you see on the right. We have more than tripled the setback that exists today, up to a total of 81 foot 9 inches to the property line, which with the setback of the church from the property line leads to a building face to building face setback of 168 feet. That's something we're very proud of, and we think helps create a good environment and keeping our neighbors in mind. On the next slide, you will see this in section view. And this gives you a good sense of where some of those lines are from the plan and how we've dealt with them. You'll see the area that says 45-foot max height. That is the area where the plan calls for a step down. Rather than doing a step down, we said, you know what, we're going to get rid of the building altogether. We're just going to have this be open. There's the 10,000 square feet of open space, the road, and then the sidewalk area adjacent to the building, and then the building itself. You'll also see as the arrow and lines step up, there's an area of 75-foot max height where we could have a 75-foot building there. For the same reasons, we chose to have no building in that area as well and push the building face back. So that you can see what this looks like in real life, take a look at the next slide. This has got a side-by-side of the existing conditions showing the locations of the existing hotel building. And then on the right, a rendering of the proposed conditions showing where the multifamily buildings will be and the public open space that will buffer the church. You can also see some kind of whited out renderings of where the hotel sits compared to where our buildings will sit today.
How many slides do you have left? I think that was your timer.
That was my timer. Okay, I will fly through the rest. I have quite a few, but I want to make sure we're addressing the issues that the church
Okay.
has brought up, so I will
3 more
fly
minutes.
through the rest. Okay, thank you. Let's move forward. There are some nice renderings, but we can skip those. One thing I'll bring to your attention is the barrier, the metal barrier that the church asked us to provide. We're happy to do that. We can agree to site plan conditions to that effect. I will mainly move past the architecture here. Obviously, we can go back to any of these slides if necessary. The only thing that I will add is that we are significantly improving the streetscapes. We are adding a new bus stop here, and we have eliminated the balconies on the west side of the building at the request of the church. We can probably move through these architectural slides with respect to the townhomes. Transportation is an issue I imagine we will talk at great length about, and I will not pretend to be a traffic engineer. So I'm just going to highlight very briefly, and this is slide, Devin, I'm sorry, I'm moving you through here. The first slide, great. This is a busy slide, but it shows all of the different mitigation strategies that we are undertaking as part of this development. I'll leave this discussion to Felice as we go forward, so why don't we skip the rest of these transportation slides for now. I want to end on our community benefits because this was something that it's an important part of any site plan development. It's one that we believe is especially important here given the relationship with our neighbors. And you know, as we discussed, a daycare is likely not in the cards for where we are today, but want to talk about what we are able to provide here. We do have 10,000 square feet of new open space. We do have a commitment to 20,000 square feet of future street easement. We're going to be creating a new bus shelter. We are going to, with the approval of the Lomax Church and the HALRB, provide a gate at the historic arch to make sure that folks from our building are not trespassing onto the church property or cemetery. We are also going to build the 8-foot screen wall that you see here in the rendering. As I said, we're happy to make some monetary contributions to the existing school for children. We are going to be adding street lighting that does not exist today. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to reduce impervious cover. We're going to provide a large number of trees. We're going to be doing all of the stormwater management upgrades that you'd expect from a typical site plan project. One item that we should discuss this evening that I was just discussing with Pastor Nelson is public art and whether the public art contribution can be used on site here or at the church on their site to honor that history. We are going to be achieving LEED Gold. We are going to be making a $2 million cash contribution to AHIF, and we are going to be doing 9 on-site affordable units. And again, I'll just add and reiterate, we will be providing 2 and 3 bedroom affordable units and 2 and 3 bedroom market rate units that don't exist today. So with that, thank you for indulging me with a little more time, and we look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, are there any public speakers?
Yes, we have 6 speakers this evening. I'll be calling your names one after the other. Each speaker will have 2 minutes until I announce otherwise. And listen for the timer on the phone, please. Our first speaker is Judith Davis, followed by Frederick Craddock.
Evening. I'm sorry, I thought I had 3 minutes, but I'll try to fit it into my 2 minutes.
Give him a few seconds. Okay, now you can speak.
Now, okay.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is Judith Davis. I am a Green Valley resident and a community organizer as well as an advocate for equity. Listening to the PowerPoint presentation from a second ago is highly disturbing, I must say, and equity is hardly synonymous with what was just presented. And the ideology of this developer is not in alignment with our Green Valley community, with its historical aspects and the residents' current and future, as well as their kids who are currently attending the Drew Elementary School. Having an upgrade by 2 units from 7 to 9 within a property that provides 531 units is hardly equitable. And saying affordable / market rate is also not within the needs of what the community currently needs. This is reminiscent of history from the 1940s and is literally repeating the displacement and or gentrification or erasure of Black history. Back in the days, it was Queen City and East Arlington, and now it is Green Valley, and it's very rich history, not just in Arlington, but in the United States of America. Barely addressing Lomax Church's needs and concerns and providing insufficient solutions is not addressing Green Valley's entire needs and challenges that remain currently still unaddressed by the county as well as by developers who keep coming into the community, knocking down old buildings and standing up high-rise buildings and or townhomes that are not affordable, that add no value to the community, that add no infrastructure along the lines of transportation, arts, entertainment, after-school programming, or even just pouring resources into the currently struggling school. And the residents of this future building may be able to afford to send their kids to another school, to a neighboring school, but the residents who currently can't afford to cover their needs, who have been overlooked and marginalized and ignored, will be displaced and don't have the latitude and luxury to send their kids elsewhere. So developers and county are failing to address or to take advantage of the opportunity to collaborate together by enhancing the neighborhood and conversely adding value and ensuring that we don't just add units that nobody can afford, but making sure that we also add infrastructure along the lines of the needs versus barely covering the concerns of the community. Like I said, Arlington County remains silent with regards to addressing what happened to Queen City and East Arlington. I don't want my children or their children's children to address concerns 70 years from now because we're failing today. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Frederick Craddock, followed by Ann Bodine.
Good evening, all. I'm Frederick Craddock, and I'm a 30-year resident of South 24th Road. And of course, to hear the project, I mean, it's very exciting. But, and I'll give you maybe some, what I'm hearing, places like Barbershop, On the Corner, we're trying to understand how this project will fit in that space, knowing what we know about traffic today. I mean, the traffic there is just overwhelming. And so one thing would be, do we need to look closer at it? Can we really understand what's being said by signal optimizations for one of the solutions? Also, there's a concern about GLUP, and after people kind of figured out what a GLUP is, and then when somebody said, well, maybe this should be a special GLUP, maybe there should be more, and well, what's the process? Well, the feeling was there was no process. They're saying, well, how did this come about? And then, well, how do you use this extra space? What is it? Those people who live along the borders of Shirlington, they like the industrial field. You know, they want to see more arts in that area. Yes, it is maybe coming to this project, but the concern there is that, you know, with it happening quickly, but for some who are finding out, and as information diffuses out in the community, the concern is, how do you get something of that scale in that area, and where we are having one curve cut on Glebe Road South, where it used to be two, it have nothing. Yes, it is good, and well, we're hearing about maybe potentially a street, but right now that's a dream. It may not happen. I think it would be the safest thing to happen, but again, the traffic, we're in a valley. We call it Green Valley. I mean, cars are really gridlocked, AM, PM, rush hour, and then you look at other activities that happen along South Shirlington Road, which starts at Glebe Road and heads south. I mean, it is gridlock. You look at the multimodal means of transportation along there. You look at the gradient and then the new gradient of 24th Road with the connector road that will be in the project. It's hard to understand how that's going to work in an area that's overly congested. And it's hard to also understand how we cannot get a curve cut that exists now. Maybe we'll do a curve cut that's a right turn only, but we have to think about what will the quality of life be in an area. Thank you.
That was a little dramatic. We're all awake now.
Yeah, I have different alarms on my phone, so I apologize for that. That was not the right one.
Maybe one that's like a bird twittering?
Are you going to play me off with a fire alarm?
No.
Okay, Madam Chair, do I have 2 or 3 minutes to clarify first? I thought I had 3.
You have 2 minutes.
Do you have my slides?
I don't have any slides.
Slides?
No, ma'am.
All right, I'd send slides in. Well, you can send them to the commission after the
I
fact.
sure will.
All right. Madam Chair, members of the commission, my name is Ann Bodine. I'm from Arlington. It's for our sustainable future. We sent you a very long memo, 18 pages, and our main concerns were 3. This project's going to lead to gentrification. It basically spells the end of transit-oriented development with 500 units over 2 miles from a metro. And it is an inordinate imbalance between the community benefits and the benefits to the community. My remarks tonight were going to focus mainly on the effect of gentrification in the community. For some context, the county overall is 63% white. This neighborhood, Green Valley, is one of many that were historically majority-minority, mainly black. And it still is more diverse than many other areas. It's 52% white now, so no longer majority-minority, but 21% black and 21% Hispanic, and the rest other. We also gave you some slides that looked at the extreme drop-off in home ownership in black communities in the county overall, and specifically 3 neighborhoods in particular, Halls Hill, Green Valley, and Johnson's Hill, which are 3 of the more iconic. I think many of us are familiar with some of our own stars who live there and live there still. In Green Valley in particular, or in these 3 majority black Arlington neighborhoods, they went from 96% black in 1960 to 27% in 2020. It's a larger problem, and we're failing to address it with this project. The Urban Institute also noted that Arlington has the lowest black home ownership rate, this was in 2017, of any jurisdiction in the DMV except Alexandria.
Another troubling statistic, Arlington is growing, but black home ownership is not. We added 14,000 new homes between 2010 and 2020, 5,000 black residents, but the number of black-owned homes fell. What are we doing about this, and how can we address it with projects such as this? Can we start with this project? In November 2023, the Center on Society and Health completed a study of social and economic changes in the census tract level in Northern Virginia, comparing 2 5-year periods, the most recent of which ended in 2021. They identified what we call islands of disadvantage among wealthy areas, and this area in particular, this very census tract, was among the most impacted. It is an island of disadvantage. The report noted a drop in this area from 24 to 41%. The white population grew from 24 to 41% in Green Valley in particular. The project fails to address the identified housing needs, such as that in the 2022 Affordable Housing Master Plan Implementation Update. Our housing gap is at the area of 30 to 50% of AMI. It is not in the area of market rate units. So of 531 units, we have 7 or now 9 that do not meet the affordability needs. They don't meet the ownership need. None of them are ownership units, and they don't really meet the family-friendly need. So we're asking you to vote no and consider our paper that we also submitted. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Dr. Bernie Byrne, followed by John Musso.
Hello. The plan for this project's March 3rd conceptual land use plan described in sheet L200 and illustrated in L610 do not conform to the county's 2016 monarch pledge. The pledge encourages developers and residents to plant native nectar plants and support native pollinators. The county's forestry and natural resources plan also highlights the need to install and maintain native plants. The plant schedule in L200 does not list any shrubs, ground covers, or perennials. Photographs show two non-native perennials. 1, catmint. This foreign plant is native only to Asia. 2, purple coneflower. This plant is native only to the southeastern and midwestern United States. It is not native to Northern Virginia. Many native pollinators feed only on native plants. Non-natives can become invasive and displace natives. Replace the 2 with plants native to Northern Virginia. The plant list contains 4 cultivars. Cultivars often have altered flowers and foliage that are toxic or do not attract and feed pollinators. Replace all 4 with their parents or with other native plants that have similar characteristics, size, shape, flower colors, etc. Monarch butterfly caterpillars feed only on milkweeds. Sheet 200, L200, or a similar sheet should provide complete information on common milkweed, which L610 illustrates, but only illustrates. This is the only plant on which monarchs prefer to lay eggs and survives well in Arlington's natural areas. Submit revised plant schedules listing all proposed shrubs, ground covers, and perennials before the county board reviews the site plan. The site's west side and Building E's south side should contain native pollinator plants, as should Building E's internal open space. The site should contain little or no turf or mowed grass, and this is important. Turf and mowed grass support few pollinators. Most turf grasses are invasive. Don't use turf and don't plant mowed grass because it's an invasive species. It's not on Arlington's invasive species list, but it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne. John Musso is followed by Robert Benson.
Good evening, members of the Planning Commission. John Musso, Government Affairs Manager at the Arlington Chamber of Commerce. On behalf of the Arlington Chamber, I want to express support for this project. We believe that the project before you for 2480 South Glebe is consistent and further advances the goals of the 4 Mile Run Valley Area Plan and other important county plans that are designed to set up Arlington to be a safer, healthier, more accessible, and more equitable community going forward. We believe that the addition of more than 530 much-needed affordable housing units to an area that is accessible to Interstate 395 and various ArtBest stations, it goes towards the goals of the area plan and also the master transportation plan, to say nothing of the addition of the increased neighborhood connectivity for the new streets. We also believe that the addition of green space in a way that complements both the future community and also the existing community with the Lomax AME Church is ultimately in the best interest of the neighborhood, Green Valley, and Arlington as a whole. And we look forward to the implementation of this project, and we urge you all to please recommend that the county board adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Benson is representing the Urban Forestry Commission.
Madam Clerk, was Pastor Nelson signed up to be a public speaker as well?
Yes, he is.
Okay, so would he go before the commissioner?
Either one.
Okay, because I think you'd have 2 minutes and then the commissions get 3? Or as an SPRC member, does he get 3? Okay. Okay, that's fine. Yeah, I like that. Okay, yeah, Mr. Benson, come on up.
Good evening. My name is Robert Benson. I'm representing the Forestry and Natural Resources Commission. As I've said at the Site Plan Review Committee meetings that I've attended, it's a large priority for Arlington to restore our tree canopy, which is in dire straits. And this is called for in the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan. It's now in effect and part of the comprehensive plan. This is a special priority in South Arlington, which has less healthy, less extensive tree canopy. And that is a disproportionate impact on the communities down in South Arlington. I'm going to speak just to the tree and natural resources, not to the density, not to the transportation, just from a tree and natural resource perspective. My commission generally supports the improvement of this site. Right now, the site is pretty barren looking, does not have much green space. The trees, as was pointed out by the county, are all along the border on the south there and don't really benefit the neighborhood. So we applaud the efforts of the developer to develop green space and trees as part of the site design. From a forestry and natural resources perspective, we applaud the green design, especially the mini park that's adjacent to the Lomax AME Zion Church Cemetery. That seems to us to be a very creative way to provide green space for not just the residents, but for the community. We still have some outstanding recommendations as a commission. These are consistent with comments I've made previously, and I would hope that these would get some consideration before the gavel is pounded on the final design of this project. First of all, we support all of the comments that were made by the Parks and Recreation Commission in their March 18th letter to the county board. All of them. We're going to incorporate them by reference in our own letter, which I'm drafting right now, which will go to the county board in a couple days on behalf of the commission. Within that letter, we especially support the recommendation to have native plantings, as Dr. Byrne noted, not just trees, but all the plants in the landscape design. We support the use of state-of-the-art planting techniques, the A300 standards that the county uses that were noted in the Chesapeake Bay presentation, using state-of-the-art planting standards for soil, size of the beds, design of the beds, etc. We support the inclusion of a maintenance plan for what is put in the ground. Often we plant so many trees and they aren't maintained, and we end up losing that investment because the trees don't make it. So having a robust maintenance plan that goes on for some years is essential for the success of the green space. On a smaller but important note, we support the use in the plan of bird-friendly glass. There's 3 notes that I would like to ask for consideration as the plan goes forward to final. One is for the buffer area. We suggest that, and the Parks and Rec Commission suggests this too, that there be an approach of more of a mini forest, not just trees here and there with other plantings, but really tree heavy. We see some benefits to this, that it would provide a real good green buffer between the community and the church, between the church and the building, and to concerns about cleaning. That's 3?
This 3. You could.
Can I have like 15 more seconds?
Sure.
So, mini forest in the buffer. On the very south border next to buildings B and C, lose a couple units, you still have a lot. Move the turnaround space up and create a green tree buffer on that south border. And the third thing is along 24th Road, we recommended eliminating the street parking extending the turn lanes and having a full 15-foot tree bed extending the entire length of 24th Road. Thank you.
Thank you.
And our last speaker is Pastor Adrian Nelson.
Good evening to the commissioners. I'm Reverend Dr. Adrian Nelson, the pastor of Lomax AME Zion Church, and I stand on behalf of the members of Lomax AME Zion Church who are here. Some of them, I'm going to ask them just to stand and remain standing as I present on behalf of the church. This process has somewhat felt a little bit like the process that was involved with David and Goliath. It sort of feels like there's a giant and there's a little guy named David who has just a slingshot and a stone. But David said, "Let no one's heart fail because of him. Your servant will go and fight with the Philistines." We don't want to fight with the developer, but there are some things that we want to share from our perspective. It's already been stated that Lomax is a special place. It's a historical place. And we are very clear that the history of Lomax and the history of Green Valley is once again being encroached upon. We could spend time talking about some of the laws that were in place that restricted African Americans into this space, and here we do it again. And we do it again with smiles, and we do it again with collegiality, but the bottom line is that we're doing it again. And we should not be doing it again. So I don't have time in the 2 minutes I have to talk about that history. But what I will say is that we're very clear that there are very few community benefits for those who live in Green Valley and for the members of Lomax. It's almost as if we're being told that someone's building a new house and they're putting a driveway in the new house. And that's a benefit to the whole community because you built a street on the property. Well, people have to go in and out. So what's the benefit to the community of that? There's an open space, 10,000 square feet of open space. So it's being presented like that's a public park. It's not a public park because the developer could say very easily, "You're trespassing on my land and I want you off." So it's not a public park. It's something that residents may get to use, but they also can be told to leave. We've looked at all the documents and we have searched over and over again for what the real public community benefits are from this project. And what we're seeing are things that basically are benefiting Arlington County and not the members of this church or this community. We've already listed those out. Before our time runs out, we are just amazed that professionals can tell us that a 531 unit build will not impact the traffic in a negative way. There is already traffic on 24th Road during the rush hour. And now you're going to add 531 units, that many cars plus. You've taken away the entrance into the property from Glebe Road. Now there's only one entrance from 24th Road, and you tell us that it's going to be better. Common sense tells us there's absolutely no way it can be better. And so the traffic we don't believe will be improved. And then lastly, I will just say that we have a concern that the county really does not care about affordable housing. We've increased from 7 to 9, 531 units. It's laughable, it's upsetting, but I guess that's the way the county feels. And so we'll continue to fight. We'll take our stone and our slingshot, and we'll see what happens. Thanks for the time.
Thank you very much. Do we have additional commissioners speaking to us tonight? Okay, and Transportation Commission heard this item. Commissioner Lantelmi, can you update us on that?
Thank you, yes. This was heard at the Transportation Commission meeting on March 13th, and we did have, as Mr. Lamb has referred, an extensive discussion about this site. We covered a number of topics on it, items such as we questioned whether there would be school bus access. Neither staff nor the developer had any information from APS about this. APS is really reluctant to share school bus information, but we understood that the developer would be happy to have a school bus go onto the property to pick up children if APS wanted that. We talked about the location of the bus stop, and the bus stop will be improved. That is at the corner of South 24th Street South and Glebe, because under county guidelines, having a bus stop on the corner is the most efficient place for a bus stop to be. We acknowledge that traffic on 24th Road is already heavy. Everybody realizes that's quite true. We looked at that, and the discussion was pretty robust on it. It's always the tension between trying to reduce curb cuts, which is county policy, which improves the pedestrian environment and safety, with concentrating the cars on out of just one driveway rather than three. Having it go onto 24th Road, the count is roughly another 75 cars over what the hotel generates now in the mornings, 55 in the evenings. That may seem like a large number, but spread over a few hours, that's not a lot of cars per minute. Not having access on Glebe Road along there is not a very safe block. The interstate interchange is right there. Cars are coming down the hill from further up Glebe. Having two curb cuts, even one curb cut on Glebe, isn't seen as ideal because of the traffic that goes at the speed of the traffic on Glebe and because of the interchange right there. VDOT's going to be rethinking that interchange, but we have no timeline on that at this point. We just know that eventually it's supposed to be happening. Unfortunately, nobody had any real information on what VDOT plans to do there. We did talk about parking and where pickup and drop-off would be. That would be on site. Overall, and then, of course, the additional street, the new Garfield, acknowledge that will, at this point, dead end. There is no connectivity through to, through the site until and unless the adjacent property redevelops, and of course, that's not in anybody's control other than that property owner. However, looking at the comparison to the master transportation plan, there are quite a number of boxes that do get checked that fit within what the MTP desires for any particular site. When we voted, as Mr. Lamb referred, we did not vote on the GLUP change because we felt that was outside of the Transportation Commission's ambit, and defer to the Planning Commission for that. For the second vote, that was a 9-0 unanimous that we would approve the site plan. As far as the third one, we also voted 9-0 to approve that with, as Mr. Lamb mentioned, an amendment. There was a motion made to recommend the mid-block crossing on 24th Road South, where the new street would go through. That motion to amend was passed unanimously, and the new and the third motion, as amended, was approved again, as I mentioned, 9-0. So that pretty much is what TC was doing. If I made any misstatements, Mr. Lamb or Mr. Johnson can correct me on that. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lantelmi. And I'll turn to Commissioner Robertson for the SPRC Chair report.
We had two SPRC meetings in November and in January. The meetings were among the better attended SPRC meetings that I've been to, Madam Chair. The issues that have already come before been discussed by several, by the proponent, by the county staff, and by Commissioner Lantelmi, were extensively discussed and addressed. The concerns of the church, especially about traffic, were vigorously talked about. There is the transportation study that has been discussed that finds that a single entrance will actually improve the site, not degrade the site. We talked a lot about site design and layout. There was no discussion really of land use and density during that portion of our first SR Site Plan Review Committee meeting, but there was some discussion of land use and density as we went through it. The building height, form, and architecture was also vigorously discussed. Many of the things that were talked about during that have been discussed yet this evening. Open space and landscaping was obviously a significant issue as well. I don't think there was any significant discussion during the SPRCs that hasn't been raised and discussed further this evening. So given the limited time we have left, I'll leave it there.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's open it up to discussion. For the agenda, Commissioner Robertson had recommended transportation, site design and layout, height and architecture, open space and landscaping, green building and sustainability. I'll just add on community benefits. Does anyone have anything else they want to add? Commissioner Berkey.
Would we put, is this on? I don't know if that's on. Would we put affordable housing under community benefits?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's go to transportation. Questions, comments? Commissioner Striner.
So I would like to kind of hear a bit of a better explanation on how this one entrance actually would make the traffic better than the two that exist today. I just think that would help all of us kind of get a better idea of what the logic behind that study is.
So can you hear me? Can you hear me? There we go. Okay. So the single entrance is consistent with the county's design standards, which require access to be located on the road considered the minor street, which for this project would be 24th Road South. This is also consistent with the MTP streets element, which recommends limiting the number of street entrances. Now, to the point about the improving traffic and safety, this has a number of benefits. One, it better manages vehicle flow. There's less stop and go as vehicles need to stop to deal with cars entering and exiting the street. But it also reduces the conflict points between pedestrians and vehicles. If you think about every driveway entrance, you've got that curb cut for pedestrians to continue along the street. So we're just reducing the number of opportunities for there to be a conflict there. So it's both safety and also, like you said, the traffic flow.
And is that the reason why the mid-block crossing was sort of batted down by you all, because it would kind of chop that flow up in the middle of 24th?
So I do want to, with the mid-block crossing, that was a separate kind of discussion. We do prioritize pedestrian movement. However, in this instance, there's not enough pedestrian activity to warrant or justify installing a mid-block crosswalk. It would instead be safer for pedestrians to walk to the signalized intersection where there's crosswalks there.
Okay, yeah.
Commissioner Robertson.
I'm wondering if the staff can help explain to us what, if the residents' concerns prove out and traffic gets worse, not better, what opportunities exist in the future to study that and to try to address it to ensure that what we expect to happen now actually does happen, that transportation is improved rather than degraded?
So in the event that that were to happen, like you said, there's always opportunities. We control the right-of-way on 24th Road South, so it is up to the county whether any new improvements come in. We have the opportunity to revisit a mid-block crosswalk if that's needed in the future. Additionally, we do, again, take a look comprehensively at different issues that are flagged by the community. That's through various programs, for example, like the Vision Zero program. We also do quick build projects. We're continually looking at different improvements to make sure that the county is safe from a transportation perspective.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Thank you. So I'm just trying to understand, because we've heard a lot about the traffic at the site, and that it's already, especially during rush hour, there's a large volume of traffic, and the concerns of what additional units on site will do to that. So what I'm hearing from staff also is that when we're talking about, because oftentimes we're talking about traffic, I think personally we're talking about cars, we're also talking about interactions with pedestrians and people walking a site. It sounds like that may not be the case here. What we're really talking about, like traffic, is really cars, and there's not as much pedestrian activity.
So
Is that a statement you're making?
we do expect both. We expect vehicles, we expect transit use, we do expect pedestrians, but not enough concentrated pedestrian activity to support a mid-block crosswalk. That you would need a lot more pedestrian activity to justify that. We do expect some, especially as people go to the bus stop, but that right now is being relocated to the corner. And then again, there'd still be the transit use. When we start talking about the car traffic, that's partially or largely in response to the concerns we're hearing about the increased vehicle traffic and trying to explain staff's analysis as it relates to the MMTA, which does look at, again, all of those modes, but explain how it addressed, or not addressed, but rather considered the vehicle traffic as one component of all of that.
Okay, that's helpful. I think what I'm getting at is that when we're talking about, if the concerns about high volume of traffic truly means traffic meaning cars and not traffic meaning pedestrians, or the concern of interactions between pedestrians and cars, then maybe the calculus, instead of saying that the traffic experience for both pedestrians and cars needs to be given equal weight in the environment, maybe we need to look at what a design looks like that prioritizes what the experience is for the cars. A sentence I've never said before. Because generally when you talk about the experience for people in the community, you're talking about, what it's like for pedestrians. But if the concern is truly that there are so many cars and the vehicular presence on the site, maybe we need to look at a calculation where the experience for pedestrians, this is going to sound harsh, matters less, because what people are interacting with is, what they're really concerned about is the volume of cars on the site and what that experience is. And I'm wondering if that's the concern here. I'm just playing out an idea. And I'm wondering if that's the concern here, then does it really make sense to say that eliminating curb cuts is the primary factor? If we're eliminating curb cuts to make it better for pedestrians, but the number of pedestrians on the site isn't necessarily the factor that people are concerned about when they talk about traffic in the area, maybe we do need to look at that calculation again. Or is that not a thing?
So I first want to respond to the idea of prioritizing the vehicle traffic. That would be, I think it's safe to say, against a lot of the MTP policies we have. We do want to balance the different modes of traffic. We do want to balance pedestrian and safety and transit operations. However, speaking to the vehicle traffic concerns that are being raised, at least with the access points, reducing the number of access points also benefits vehicle traffic. Again, like I mentioned, you have the less stop and go, you have less for drivers to be needing to keep up with, less opportunities for those different decision moments as they're driving or along the street. So even though like the driveway I'd characterize as a conflict point for drivers and pedestrians, that's also still a conflict point for drivers. Two drivers could possibly intersect at that point as well. So it is a benefit that benefits all the users of the road, not just the pedestrians. Pedestrians are just significantly more protected by reducing those conflict points, but it does also help with the vehicle traffic.
I appreciate what you're saying. So it's good transportation policy is the position to eliminate curb cuts, not simply for the potential interactions between pedestrians and vehicles, because pedestrians interacting with vehicles can be very dangerous, but also for vehicles interacting with vehicles. Sort of, okay. So the trade-off being that may increase sort of the traffic experience, but also at the same time reduce the potential for traffic, car-to-car impacts, collisions and so forth. Is that
correct?
That's also, and that's what the studies show?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Weir, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, a question. Mr. Lamb, I've heard you a couple of times mention the fact that the county owns the right-of-way, and I was hoping you could say, and therefore controls when and if and what changes are made. I was hoping you could say a little bit more about what that means. What would the alternative be to the county owning the right-of-way, and tell me, it seems like you're saying that it's a good thing that the county can control that. What would be the bad thing in the alternative? I'm just hoping to tease that out a little bit.
So are you thinking about like the alternative as like thinking about private streets where it would be up to the developer? Like that's one possible, or are you thinking about the?
I think we have a neighborhood and neighbors that are concerned about language like the county controls whether or not something can be done. And so I'm hoping that you can tell us and the people present why that's a good thing that the county that the county has control over what can change to that street, and what it would mean if the county didn't have that control.
So the county having control of our right of ways basically lets us again have that public oversight over what's happening with the roads, the road designs. If you look at elsewhere where like you get more suburban communities, not necessarily Arlington, but where there are private roads, but they're much more common, that aren't necessarily subject to the private easements that we get when there are, the public access easements that are associated with the private roads that we have here. HOAs or other organizations are the ones that would have control over those roads. They can kind of do what they want. They can restrict who can come in. They can redesign it as they please. That's not the case here. The county controls it. If there's any improvements or changes to the road, it will need to go through a public process. There is public oversight. That's part of what we're doing today with 24th Road South. So that's one alternative. The other alternative is you get the, when it's right of way and it's public road, VDOT can own it. That's also what happens many other communities in the Commonwealth. And that's just a separate government agency or organization that would then be managing it. And I won't speak to whether or not people have a preference for that, but I'll just speak to the fact that we are the ones who would maintain and control this right of way.
So I think what I hear you getting at then is that if there are changes that need to be implemented given traffic patterns after a project were to be built, that the county is about as well situated to respond to them as would be possible for a local government in Virginia.
Correct.
Thank you.
If I may just add on to that briefly, usually our standard site plan conditions require kind of post-project traffic monitoring at 2, 5, and 10 years. I wanted to ask the applicant and staff if we wanted to look at an additional monitoring period at just the first year so that we can earlier mitigate possible concerns. Are you comfortable with that?
Yes, we are.
If they want to agree to it, I won't object to that.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Bagley.
Yeah, I want to align myself with Commissioner Peterson. That was exactly the question I was going to ask. How long do we wait, or what is the precipitating criteria to determine if we need to restudy things? I mean, hopefully it's not somebody gets hurt or something like that. Given that there are tremendous community concerns, I would think that, yes, the year would be far better than waiting for something to happen. So thank you.
I do want to make one correction / caveat. We aren't, those monitoring periods, we're not looking at all of the traffic. We're just doing the vehicle counts. That's tied to the parking performance plan. We can still modify the condition, but I just wanted to clarify the extent of that.
That's good. Again, I guess my thought is here that traffic counts are great, but if in fact some of the concerns from the folks that are currently living there now, if there is something that happens, I mean, I prefer to not just be counting cars, but I guess what is the process, or will there be some communication maybe between the applicant and the neighbors constantly afterwards to make sure that maybe something like this could be averted, or if there is a need to have something modified that we can do it? I'd like to believe that the communication will help preempt any sort of issues. Communication is a lot better than getting somebody hurt, so thank you.
Absolutely. No, Commissioner Bagley, I appreciate your comments, and I think that they're well-founded given some of what we've heard this evening and throughout the process. So, we are willing to agree to those earlier studies, right, to earlier than typical to ensure that if there are issues, we're catching them and we're not, prevention versus cure. And certainly we intend to be in touch with our neighbors all the time, but if there is a mandate of some type to do that, we're happy to do it because we're going to do it anyway. So we're happy to agree to any kind of conditions about communication.
Commissioner Berkey, you had raised your hand, so I will go to you last, and then we'll move on to our next topic.
Sure. No, I think this really merits a lot of conversation. I'm just picking up where Commissioner Steinberger was talking, and really, I think if we're going to look at that traffic, I mean, not to discount. I mean, I live in Douglas Park. Really take the concerns of my neighbors in Green Valley seriously. Definitely 7 a.m. to 9 a.m., right, is going to be a huge concern. I'm a longtime rider of the Art 84. Like, we get stuck in traffic a lot. And this is, I have the map pulled up, right? This is a tough area. As Ked was saying, there's not a lot of egress points anyway if you're trying to get on Glebe to get onto 395, right? So I don't have a great solution, but I think really looking at that morning rush hour is going to be very, very important. Easily foresee a situation where traffic backs up all the way up to Shirlington Road, then you're getting into the town square. Drew's right there, school buses, it's a mess. So really need to look at that. And then also to Commissioner Steinberger's question about pedestrian safety. I think the reason why I think there should be a mid-block crossing is less about pedestrians kind of just typically walking there at that time of day. I mean, there are, but it's those buses. It's the Art 84 bus, and it drops off a ton of people, and they're crossing the street, right? Or they're crossing the street to get to it. I think as much as people walking around as it is people getting off buses or getting onto buses, especially from the apartment building across the street, is a reason to reconsider that. So to pick up with your point, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So then we'll move on to site design and layout. No questions about that. Okay. Building height and architecture. Okay, moving.
So could the applicant or whomever put up just a slide to kind of see, maybe one that kind of shows the color scheming of the building, with the Lomax Church, kind of maybe something in that realm? And I apologize, I don't do slide numbers, so I have no idea what slide to tell you to go to.
I went so fast, there's no way you would know.
It wouldn't have mattered, Kedrick, but that's fine. Okay. Yeah, so okay. So the only thing I did want to highlight that I do appreciate that there is, by switching to a redder brick, that there is more of a reflection to that. And I think that matters. And I appreciate that, the aesthetic of sort of what a lot of the buildings that we're seeing now in terms of apartments or condos are, I don't know, industrial is in. And sometimes that's just how things are, trend-wise. But I do appreciate that from a color scheming that we have something that's more reflective of the community.
Commissioner Robertson and then Commissioner Weir.
I'll just ask the applicant, it's my understanding that you could have proposed a building of 12 floors rather than what you have. Can you address the considerations that you all thought about as you arrived at that decision?
Sure. And to your point, the RAH zone allows up to 12 stories or 125 feet. We took into account not only the 4 Mile Run Valley plan and its recommendations of height, but obviously the heights of the surrounding neighbors, the Allister, and the other apartment buildings nearby, and of course the church next door. And that not only factored into our decisions about the overall building structure, but also that placement of where that height would be, and the rationale for the step back that we have there and the kind of no build zone and the height pushed up onto Glebe Road.
Okay. Commissioner Weir?
Are there any, I note that the western edge of the proposed building is considerably further east than the western edge of the existing building. You had a slide showing that. I note the step backs and setbacks, because it's to the east as opposed to most other directions, right? shadow isn't as much of an impact. But a thing about churches, right, is that they're notorious for meeting in the morning. Do you have a shadow slide that can show us how that works?
We do. We will need to pull it up, but we do have one. Bear with us a moment.
Thank you.
Okay. While we're waiting, we can take another comment or question. Did I see Commissioner Steinberger? No. Okay. Then we'll just pause for a second.
What's the next topic?
Should we move on to the next topic while you look for it? Okay. Next topic is open space and, we got it? Okay, open space and landscape. Commissioner Bagley.
So getting back to Dr. Burns' comments, and we all know his comments, and God bless him for, defending, elusive little tiny butterfly that, has some greater means in society than one might think late at night after a long day. So in the plantings, he did say that they're non-native ones. Why?
Can you hear us? We'll go back and we'll check that. We're pretty sure we revised that in the most recent submission, but it wasn't what was presented at SBRC 2, which may tie to that statement.
Great, thank you. And also, will there be common milkweed?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay, well, that is the one thing that he has specifically said. Yes. Or the equivalent that is going to,
No milkweed, and we'll double check on the equivalent.
Thank you. And also his comment about the turf and grasses being bad for pollinators. Can you go back and also examine that? I would appreciate that. Is this where we talk about tree planting?
And to be clear, Commissioner Bagley was saying we want milkweed, or she wants milkweed,
Yes.
not that we don't want it. Milkweed is good for the
Want it,
butterflies.
yes. Common milkweed
Or
is
the
the one.
equivalent. Okay,
Yes.
great.
Another one at the forefront that we made sure is not included from his previous comments, but it was during SBRC.
Great. Yes.
Can we just, if I may, I think the mic wasn't off, so for the record and for those who might not have been able to hear, the answer to the question was that during the SPRC process, there were comments about certain types of milkweed to avoid planting because they are non-native or otherwise not desired for the purpose of protecting native pollinators. The answer is that the preferred native pollinating supporter milkweeds, and correct me if I'm wrong, are the ones that are going to be planted. The non-preferred, non-native insect supporting plants are not going to be planted.
Thank you so much. Better said.
Just only saying that because the applicant didn't have the mic on and wouldn't be audible to people watching remotely or even in the back of the room. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Will there be bird-friendly glass? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And getting back to Mr. Benson's comments, will you be using the state-of-the-art planning tools that he mentioned are part of what we're supposed to be doing now?
I believe so.
Okay.
And
I think pertinent to all of these are all good questions. I think pertinent to all of these, we will need to file a final landscape plan and work with staff through that process. And a lot of these things, I'm sure, will be flagged by the arborist and others in county staff.
Thank you. And also to Mr. Benson's comments too, a lot of times when projects come in and they look very pretty with the renderings and everything, and then you go by a couple years later, it's like, oh geez, what happened? Was there blight? Did somebody forget to water? Whatever. The idea of a long-term maintenance plan, could you also include that in your plan moving forward? Because I would think also, in addition to being a benefit to everybody around there, including your own residents, it's just obviously going to help you keep the building rented and happy people. So, thank you.
Absolutely, we'll consider that.
Yes, and following up on the landscaping, I agree with all the what my fellow commissioners have observed and requested on this. following again on what Mr. Benson is asking, for that strip along the new Garfield, that's going to be a very important strip. It's going to serve multiple purposes. It's a community space. It's a buffer zone. We can use it for pollinators, but it's important that it be done long-term. It's also important that it be designed not just with the community, with the county's landscaping staff, but also with the church too, because they will also be looking at it. You'll have a wall there, of course, but presumably a lot will go over that wall or above that wall. So I would hope that they will be brought in early and often while that is being designed, and you have plenty of time still to design it. I'm not dictating how it should happen or what it should look like. That's not my job or competence, but certainly this can be a pretty exciting space. And if it's a community space, it's all the more important because that will invite people in to actually see it and use it and be there. So the community really has to be involved in that design. And I think you have a great opportunity to be able to do that. So thank you.
Commissioner Streiner.
Well, I want to kind of follow up on those comments, but in a different lane. When it comes to the location of this open space, one of the biggest threads that came out of the SPRC was that we wanted to respect the cemetery that's on this, historic, culturally significant church. And that's great. We're going to build the wall, to separate. That's fantastic. But we're also putting a community public space immediately adjacent to this cemetery. We are directing people to walk and talk and make a bunch of noise directly next to this cemetery. And I'm concerned that it's undercutting the whole point of A, the community benefit piece, and B, the respecting of Lomax and the remains of their members from the past. So I'm concerned on that level. And I guess this kind of plays to the larger theme that we heard in the public comment, that is this actually a community benefit, or is this just a park for residents to walk around and make noise in right next to the cemetery? That's not really a comment, or question so much, but it's something I wanted to raise here because I think it plays into the larger themes that we heard in public comment, SPRCs, and now our discussions here at the Commission.
Commissioner Weir.
I think that one thing that it's important for us to be mindful of is not just that the community benefits benefit the whole community, right? But also that there was an effort by staff a few years ago to stop calling them community benefits. I think because for a number of reasons, but I think that it's important for us to remember that we're not really talking about community benefits. We're talking about conditions that are offered to mitigate the impacts of the additional density beyond what's allowed by right. And it is vitally important that those mitigation measures be good for the whole community, right? But it's also fair for us to remember that sometimes things like green space on a site mitigate the impacts of the bonus density by offloading, by giving someone an alternative, by giving the people who would live at that building an alternative to the existing parks, right? By reducing the demand for the park service. Now, we have been very, very good in this community at making sure that we, instead of just having lots of walled gardens, we increase the supply of parks. I think that there are people who would say that we need to be better at that. I happen to think that we've been quite good, especially having served on the 4 Mile Run working group starting 10 years ago. Where am I going with this? Where I'm going with this is that
9 o'clock. So where are you going with this?
We do have to remember, as commenters have pointed out, that community benefits have to benefit the community. But sometimes I think it's fine to note that sometimes community benefits don't look like they directly benefit the community if they if they do just what they are supposed to do, which is to mitigate the impact of the additional density. So I think that the question I would ask us to be mindful of, and maybe in our letter ask the board to think more about, is how is that, if that green space is going to be programmed in such a way that generates noise, what kind of sound buffers are in place? Do there need to be more trees planted to act as a sound buffer? Does there need to be taller non-tree vegetation? Things like that, right? So a couple of points that I've had ready to go since some of the public comment, and Commissioner Striner, unfortunately for you, you gave me the opportunity to raise them.
Thank you. I did want to clarify, one of our public speakers was concerned that the easement to the park could be taken away in the future. I just wanted to hear from staff. Is this a permanent easement where it'll always be open to the public?
Correct. It's going to be a permanent public use and access, so the public can always, come into the public space as they wish. Not only that, the applicant is going to install everything and conduct long-term maintenance within this public space.
And is there any need for a sign to indicate to the public that this is indeed a public space and not something that's exclusive for the residents?
So we can definitely explore adding a sign. I think it is recommended per the public spaces master plan for privately owned public spaces.
Perfect.
Just ensuring, the community knows they can use this space freely.
Perfect. And I just wanted to comment that I really liked the idea of the mini forest that Mr. Benson mentioned, and I think that could help with the sound mitigation that we were just talking about. I also wanted to just note that in conversations that we've had with both the developer and the church, it sounds like they are agreeing to have a permanent barrier along the property line to protect the historic cemetery as well. So I just wanted to get public agreement to that, that a gate would be organized in coordination with the church and the Historic Affairs Landmark Review Board to protect the to protect the historic cemetery from people trespassing on it. And that signage would be provided as well, letting people know that that is not a public area. So the applicant is comfortable with that if we had some site plan conditions specifying those things.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Guevara, did you have something?
Yes, really quickly. First, I want to be clear that I don't necessarily disagree with Commissioner Weir. However, the fact that staff or the county has uses community benefit as a potential misnomer, it does not sort of take away from the larger picture, which is essentially that would there not be a 531 units being put there, then the community would not seek to have these additional we wouldn't need to put these additional barriers. We wouldn't need to do all these additional things. But more importantly, I understand that you guys are saying that you would put a signage. I think one of the big things with gentrification is that although there may be signage, it creates an exclusionary zone between folks that have been there a long time and the new residents that come there. And so to me, it's sort of irrespective of whether community benefits is a misnomer or not, I think we really need to take a more comprehensive view on who's really benefiting, who is present, and who is being left out of these spaces, even though, again, we're putting signage, but what is the underlying and overall effect that we're having in the community that has been there for generations and yet right now are being asked to completely look at their way of living just to accommodate others that are coming in, but are not necessarily really giving concessions and potentially gentrifying the community there, and thereby creating some exclusion even further. Thank you.
Thank you. Can staff respond to the equity questions that Commissioner Guevara has raised, like how the equity resolution was applied to this specific project, maybe? Does that sound good, Commissioner Guevara?
So I can kind of just speak to just the overall SPRC process. So when it first started, we kicked off with an online engagement. This was pretty well participated with. We had over 70 respondents, over 380 comments, where we heard a lot from community members, SPRC members about some of the concerns that were brought up later in the process. So we started off with that, and then we did have these 2 SPRC meetings where, the typical SPRC is comprised of commission members, but we also conducted our outreach to important community groups, including Green Valley and the Lomax AME Zion Church, as well as the 2 adjacent townhouse HOAs. So, the framework for this SPRC process, we did try to, reach out to as many interested community groups as possible.
This is sort of just a general point. I take umbrage with the how some community engagement is done. I heard earlier from community members saying that they had to educate themselves about the club, or what's the difference between a special club. We have other communities in Arlington where they have not only the resources, but the time and also the relationships with Arlington County, and can be great advocates for themselves. And this is not to say or to be patronizing in any way, but I think we need to be really careful and really intentional in the way that, say, in an online engagement form, well, okay, did people even know that was happening? And what does that actually mean? Having, grown up in that area, I know what the effects are on both, Black residents and in the immigrant community. And so while I appreciate that you guys did your typical type of engagement that you do, it really worries me that perhaps we could have done this in a different manner, and perhaps we wouldn't be here today with so many folks having issues with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Streiner.
And then to follow up on this kind of discussion, this reminds me a lot of what happened with the Goodwill site. There were legitimate transportation safety issues with the way that site was being proposed. And we put a little speed hump, we put a little flashing sign, we put all these little set dressings to, make ourselves feel better that, oh, this site is safer now, so it's okay. Meanwhile, we've, ignored the fundamental problem when we approved that project. And in this case, we have a similar situation with these, because the community benefits more broadly. It's, we can put the wall, the gate, the signs, whatever, but we're not addressing the fact that, and again, we are routing 531 new residents directly next to this cemetery, directly next to this property that has played such a significant role culturally in South Arlington. And it's just it's important that we actually take meaningful steps to maintain these sites in our community, and that we address the root problem rather than just cover it up with little set dressings and signs and pat ourselves on the back and call it a night. So I think that's just important for us to bear in mind.
Thank you. And we can move on to the next category, green building and sustainability. No questions or comments. Community benefits. Commissioner Bagley.
I can empathize with the church, and having not grown up here, but driving through Shirlington Road over the years and basically seeing less and less and less and less of a former community that was there, how you are feeling now. I don't have the answer for that. It is distressing for me as a planning commissioner to have so many projects come in that literally our market rate, which right away excludes a lot of folks who have been excluded in the past. So I wish I had the answer to that, but I don't. Should this project move forward, I would ask that the church use your special ability to communicate your history and invite residents to come and learn more about the neighborhood and what has made it special to this day, and attempt to continue the story as best you can. And yes, I agree that a park is not exactly a community benefit as the trade for what it is that you might be giving up. Again, I wish I had the answer. We continue to approve projects that most cannot afford, And certainly folks who have seen their neighborhood change as extensively as you have. I just wish I had the answer better. I would continue to tell you to stay steady in your Davy versus Goliath approach. It has paid off in the past. Sometimes it doesn't look like it, but it has. And, perhaps we can change things in the future. I don't think it's the applicant's role to try to figure out how we address this. The applicant comes forward with a plan to try to get other people into the community, which we do want. The balance here, though, is definitely something that continues to be extremely troubling as we see our minority populations continue to erode. So continue the fight. Also part of the fight is including, even if there's been exclusion, two wrongs don't make a right, include folks who come so that they understand the history and the things that can be done. So I don't know how this is going to end up, but this is the 8,000-pound gorilla in the room. So I just have to say something. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Guevara.
So this is not just for the applicant, by the way, but also for the county. Just a little backstory. So like I said, I grew up in this area and remember going up and down Superman Hill and, really being engaged with the community. I think what worries me is that it's always, it seems, incumbent upon the residents that are being displaced to be the knowledge, there's the teachers, the welcomers, and yet, their spaces are the ones that are being encroached upon. And so I would say that it's actually incumbent on an applicant and the county to make those inroads as opposed to putting that responsibility on the community. Having said that, one of the things that also, granted, the minimum is 7 on-site units affordable on-site units that you need to provide. You're increasing that to 9, and yet those are only at 60% AMI, which obviously will exclude the vast majority of residents there. As Commissioner Striner mentioned earlier as well, I think it's really concerning that it's isolating a lot of the community members, and it's not really for me, addressing the issues of equity that are resulting from this. I mean, talking about who benefits and who doesn't, I can't help but think, a lot of this project is geared towards the new residents that are incoming and insufficiently on the current residents. I know we've spoken a lot about the church, but I also think the dynamics beyond the church and how it's affecting the community at large are not being sufficiently looked at. I remember attending the first SPRC and they said, okay, how are you, according to the 4-mile run area plan from 2018, you're supposed to incorporate the history of the neighborhood into the plans. And so far, it's been mostly a focus on just the church. But what about elements of the community as a whole and the historical aspect of it? And I could go on, but essentially, what ultimately worries me is that I feel as if not enough community input has been considered, and that we could be doing better with this project. And again, this is not just a criticism of the applicant, but also of the county, going back all the way how we've engaged with the community and making significant inroads going forward. And also revisit, I would encourage you guys to revisit the Affordable Housing Master Plan to have a lens with what happens when there's gentrification. Should we be looking at affordable housing in a different lens if it's directly impacting certain communities disproportionately than others? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Steinberger. Oh, sorry.
I appreciate a lot of what Commissioner Guevara said, and I think that what really spoke to me is that, forcing sort of the kind of welcome committee idea of it and sort of forcing kind of the folks who've been in a community long-term to be kind of the welcomers, the teachers, whatever. That's not, yes, I understand that's like how hundreds and hundreds of years of everything have worked, but that shouldn't be the way that it is ad infinitum. And I think that there is a responsibility to engage and meaningfully learn the place you're going to be in. And I think that that is on both county and applicant to be voices in that process and encourage that process. I do, and I know a lot's been said about sort of the number of on-site affordable units, and I think there's a productive conversation to be had about at what level of affordability those units should be at, because I do think we should be able to do better than 60 AMI. And I think that if what the community needs is something that's 40 or 45, whatever it is, that's a conversation that should happen. But I also want to focus on the fact that it's not just the number of units, it's the fact that these are affordable on-site units as opposed to a cash contribution. And something that this body has really emphasized in the entire time that I've been on it is moving to push developers to do an in-kind, to do the on-site units. Because it was de facto that you would just get a cash contribution and then the money went wherever and it, parceled out. And I'm sure, a lot of it did go into the community that was immediately impacted, but some of it didn't. And I don't think that builds good partnerships or sets good standards and builds good relationships in communities with new neighbors. I think what matters is actually getting those units in the buildings that are being developed. And so when you have a developer who's willing to take that, to do that, to say, these are the values, we're going to do that, I get that 9 units is not going to immediately increase the housing equity, of an entire community. I get that. I'm not trying to say that it will, but having on-site affordable units in a new building, that messaging, that does matter. That, keeping those units in the community, what that says to other developers, because there will be continuing development. We can have the conversation about what gentrification looks like and, what, the real concerns about how that process takes place. But it's going to happen. It's happening everywhere in Arlington as a whole. And, certainly it's going to be happening in Green Valley. And what I want is to set good standards so that we're working with developers who want to follow, to keep on-site affordable units so that we're continuing as we're getting projects developing, we are seeing those things happen. And developers are, engaged in the community that they are coming into. And that's one of the ways to do that. I also, and I think this was mentioned early in the applicant's presentation, I'm not going to get into the debate of the linguistics of what a community benefit is or isn't, and whether, it should be called something else than a community benefit, like a community rate sizing or something else. I'll let other people have that conversation. But I do think that one of the things that I did hear that I think is a benefit to the church, to the community, to everything, is investing in is what I understand is the daycare that's currently on site. And I think that, however you slice that, that is certainly going to have an impact on, the community that's there and the community that's coming in. And I think that's a really important thing too. So that's sort of where I'm at in the whole process. I think this is a really complicated circumstance. I am grateful for the community to come out and speak to us so that we can be better educated about what's happening here, because I think that matters. And, we have to take that and sort of message that to everybody's got a boss. So we got to message this to the county board in terms of what's going to happen, in a next step. But you guys have, from my view, enabled us to do that. And I am grateful for that. I will be supporting this project with the understanding that there are some amendments and motions coming forward that I think are going to make it even better and enshrine some of the protections that we've discussed tonight, will allow this project to meaningfully engage with the community that it's coming into. That is how I feel. I'm sure others feel differently, but I feel like you guys have the right to know how I'm seeing that. Thank you.
Thank you. I just also wanted to align myself with appreciation for providing on-site affordable housing, since as a commission, we have been calling for that for the 5 years that I've been on this commission. So it's nice to see that happening, as well as the family-sized units so that children have a place to live too in Arlington. And I also just wanted to acknowledge that every project involves a public art contribution, and that can either be in the form of contributing to a fund or providing on-site or adjacent community art. And so my understanding from talking with Pastor Nelson is that the church may be interested in a contribution to the public art that would honor the history and contributions that the church has played in the community. And so if that is indeed the case, then I think I would like to see that public art go towards how the church has contributed to the community. So, Commissioner Berkey.
Thank you. All right, I got a couple questions, but this won't be a deposition, but maybe some yes or no's just to get through it here, since it's almost 9:20. So let's talk about affordable housing. This is a critical element of this project, a lot of community concern about it, so let's just get down to brass tacks. So what we heard from our neighbors was a concern about only getting 7 on-site units and about $2 million contribution to AHIF. So either staff or Kat, if you can answer this. So my understanding is the $2 million is likely going to be, that's the base contribution, right, under the Affordable Housing Ordinance. And then the 7 on-site units, that's for the bonus density in the proposal. Is that
Correct,
right?
which
Correct?
we've agreed to bump up to 9.
Great. Okay, so for just edification of our neighbors, because I don't know how much people know how it works here in Arlington. So we have an affordable housing ordinance. The county passed it, but to change it, we would have to get Richmond, the General Assembly, and the governor to sign off. There's a whole history I could go through, but we don't have time. So it is a sticky situation. So there's a formula that basically dictates how much we can require developers to contribute affordable housing. So we can't just increase that percentage. We would need the General Assembly to sign off on it. I think it's safe to say that's unlikely in 2025. So that is something that's kind of codified, and then the developer gets to choose whether they're going to do the on-site units or the contribution for like what we call the base density, kind of like the regular development. And almost always they choose the money. The upside is that the money usually gets us more units in the long run when we do other projects and loan dollars out. The downside is we're not getting the units on site, right? So there's a trade-off, right? I will tell you, if you're interested, there's actually a subcommittee meeting. I'll be there virtually tomorrow. The Housing Commission is looking at this ordinance because there are a lot of folks in the community who do want to look at changing this ordinance. It would require the county board signing off on it. Of course, it would require Richmond. And so I'm telling you all this because I share your anger. If you're frustrated about only getting 7 units, only getting $2 million, I agree with you. I was in the Housing Commission for 7 years fighting on this. I've been on the Planning Commission now for 2. We need more contributions. We need more money. We need more units. We're not at a place where we can require more. So if you all would be interested in coming or being part of that movement, I think that would be excellent because it needs more voices. But I think that's probably why where this project is as far as the affordable units. That's as much as the county kind of can require. So I hear the frustration because I don't want to speak for you, but I could easily see somebody seeing this proposal who goes, it's a big developer. They got a lot of money. A lot of people with means are going to live in this project. Like, what's that mean for us? We're only getting a few units. Like, a lot of folks are not necessarily going to be able to live in this project that we may know. Maybe we can't afford to. I certainly I see that. And I think there's a lot of legitimate concerns that have been raised that we've talked about here. One of the things I'll note that we haven't talked about is anybody attesting to like the beauty or the vibrance of the current site. Like, I haven't heard anybody say we really like the site as it is, right? And so, the status quo, I think it's fair to say, is also not really acceptable. Like, we need better, we can do better. And so I think the challenge is, and it's natural, and I do this myself, we see a new development and it's an opportunity, and we don't want to lose opportunities, right? And it's frustrating when we don't get everything we want out of new projects. And the reality is, and I don't mean to be glib about it because I really am not, I'm really genuine in a lot of my concerns here, is no one project will solve everything. It just won't. It's imperfect. This is a hard site. These folks are proposing only one egress because of the geometry of the site, the issues with VDOT, right? And so that it's, you're in these situations where do you accept something that's imperfect or do you hold out for something else? I have a lot of folks who live in Green Valley, friends, South Arlington, but also North Arlington. And one of the things we also talk about is like, can my kids afford to live here when they grow up? My friends, like people being pushed out. There's a real concern about kids being able to be in Arlington County, people having families, like being able to actually raise their kids here.
And so I hear a lot of the concerns, especially as it pertains to affordability. But one of the things that I am convinced in is not building housing or pushing people away is not going to make us a more affordable or vibrant community either. So that's the challenge that we kind of live in. So, I think we need to keep talking. We clearly need more housing options. I so appreciate you coming here and raising the issue of the embarrassing lack of affordable housing in this project. Please keep doing that, because our county board members need to hear it, but who really needs to hear it are our members of the General Assembly, who every single year should be pushing housing bills to get us more affordable housing. All right, I will yield the rest of my time. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi at 9:26.
Yeah, I will be quick because I just want to align myself with Commissioners Steinberger, Peterson, Berkey on these things, all points I was going to raise also. I also want to emphasize this, as it currently is, this site is not an asset for either Green Valley or Arlington as a whole. It is going to be redeveloped by someone at some point. And anything is almost better than what's there now. This project is something has responded to things that this commission has been talking about for years, literally years, by adding units on site, having larger units, 2 and 3 bedroom. This also is a site that is not displacing anybody. No one is living on this site. It's a hotel and a parking lot. So, it is additive. It is not replacing. It's not perfect. None of the projects that come before us are perfect. But this is one that I will be supporting because it will be adding to our housing stock, which we need at every level. The more we add on, the better. We have apartment buildings on 2 other corners of this. It will be ultimately a benefit for us as a whole, and adding more people is usually good. They can be part of the community. So anyway, I just want to make sure people knew where I stand on this also. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Streiner.
Yeah, so I'm agreeing with a lot of the big picture concepts. Housing, we need it. We need more places for people to live. But you can't exclusively look at it through the lens of we just need to build, and that'll fix everything. I think we have to take a holistic look. And when we come to this discussion of community benefits, which is the topic we're at now, you have to look at how this is going to affect the whole ecosystem. And when you look at the benefits, concessions, whatever we want to call them, why is it a small park next? Again, they seem to benefit the developer and the residents that will be living here, not the community necessarily. Why was childcare thrown out? If that was a discussion, that was a benefit that the community discussed. Why is that not in the picture? More affordable housing, why is that not in the picture at this point? I know we've added 2 more units, but as we all talked about, there are obviously statutory limitations, but it's not making a dent in the grand scheme of things. We're looking at a 1.6% of the entirety of this building is going to be affordable, while the rest will be market rate. And so I think, in the interest of time, I'm just going to ask the question, is that, when we consider benefits, when we consider these developments, we're not just looking at one axis of analysis, we're looking at the entire panorama of these different things that we're trying to consider. And I think when it comes to these benefits, we have to look at how those benefits are going to impact not only the residents, not only the immediate neighbors, but the entire neighborhood and the entirety of Arlington on the whole. And I'm not sure that this project does those things in a meaningful way as it exists right now.
Commissioner Guevara.
I
and
know.
then I'm going to have some last words.
Yes. So I'd like to associate myself with Commissioner Streiner's comments. Something that first, I will say, yes, we've moved forward in the conversation from when I first started on the commission to say, hey, we want on-site, we want bigger family units. And so a conversation has moved forward. Nevertheless, just because there's been an incremental sort of minute change does not mean that we shouldn't be asking for more. If not now, when? If we don't make those changes. And I've also heard the argument, well, our hands are tied. It's really, if we want, it has to be the General Assembly to change it. It has to be, there's always excuses for everything. And while the applicant, yes, can provide the minimum, and yes, can do just an AHIF, contribution. And yes, there's a formula out there. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. And you owe it, I think, because not only are you getting bonus density, not only are you benefiting from, creating this luxury sort of units there, it's also not an affordable housing project, which I understand, but we can't sort of sidestep of how much benefits there are for others and not the community. And I just suppose I want to bring it clear that we can't just keep saying, well, we've done an incremental change, and well, it's beyond, it's better than the current conditions, therefore, it's better in general. Just because it's better than what's there now doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking for more. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much. We've had a very fulsome conversation this evening. I think we are close to moving to votes. I do want to just clarify a couple of additional things that were part of some earlier discussions about updates to site plan conditions. The first, a question to staff. The civic associations often get community meeting space in an applicant project for like quarterly meetings. I know that was kind of discussed. If that were added in, would that decrease any of the other community benefits, or could that be added in at this point, where if Green Valley Civic Association wanted to occasionally host events or meetings at the applicant site, would they be able to do that?
Yes, and I think at this point it would be on top of everything we discussed. So it would be in addition.
Okay, we didn't hear from Green Valley tonight, but I think that would be a nice thing that we could add, and if they want to use it, they can, and if they don't need to.
May I clarify something? So we actually had that discussion with the Green Valley Civic Association, and we already agreed to that. It doesn't live in the conditions. We're happy to amend those, but we just kept them outside of the writing. So we agreed to it.
Okay, perfect. And then two issues that were raised about protecting the historic church adjacent to the property. One is if there is dust or rodents or other construction debris that impacts the church, the applicant will work with the church to have those issues addressed, whether it's cleaning the beautiful stained glass windows from dust or, detailing the church, anything that needs to get done that is an impact caused by the construction.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Not only rodent infestation and attenuation there, but dust as well.
Okay, perfect. And then finally, our church has services on Sunday mornings, so we wanted to have an update to the site plan conditions, construction hours, to not have construction done on Sundays before 1:00 p.m., or in the case of funerals, coordinating with the church to minimize disruption that happens during those times.
And it actually should be 2 p.m. That was
2
my
p.m.
mistake, not 1 p.m., 2 p.m. I talked to Pastor Nelson earlier about that. And yes, we're obviously, funerals are by their nature a little less predictable, but we're happy to work with the church when those are coming up to adjust accordingly to ensure we don't interrupt.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair, before we vote on the GLUB resolution, I have some questions I'd like to ask staff, because this did come up in the conversation about the GLUB.
Okay.
The GLUB itself, we're looking to change it, and as you mentioned, that is on the motion of the county, not by the applicant. The GLUB itself is guidance, but the zoning ordinance is what the law is. So is that correct?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. If we did not change the GLUB, would this project in any way change?
No.
Does a GLUB change have any effect on the value of this property?
It does not.
So really what we're talking about here is housekeeping, in my words.
Yes, the purpose of the reason why this is being brought forward on the county board's own motion is because this is an effort to align a discrepancy between the existing GLUB designations in a manner that would be consistent with the 4 Mile Run Valley plan. I want to stress that, because I don't think we've talked a lot about that tonight, things like the open space, the road connections, all of those things that are being provided here are in furtherance of the goals of the board's adopted 4-mile Run Valley plan.
And there was
additional housing here is one of those goals, and so the GLUP amendment is to align that in order to further support the goals of the 4-mile Run Valley plan here.
And we did not need to go through a special GLUP study because the 4-mile Run area plan really had already taken care of that essentially.
Absolutely. The purpose of special GLUB studies are to study properties that have not been addressed by board-adopted policy. And the 4-mile Run Valley plan is the board's adopted policy for this property. Therefore, a special GLUB study would be inconsistent with the GLUB booklet that provides guidance on why and when we do those.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we are ready to go to motions. I think Commissioner Guevara had a motion, and then Commissioner Robertson had a couple of motions. I have a motion. We have some amendments to the main motion, so why don't you kick it off, Commissioner Guevara?
Sure. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the County Board to delay by 30 days the Crescent Community's proposed GLUB amendment and 4.1 site plan amendment at 2480 South Glebe Road to address affordable housing, transit, and the Lomax Green Valley community concerns.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Steiner seconds. Do you want to speak to your motion, Commissioner Guevara?
Just from, hearing community members' concerns tonight, I think that it's really important to revisit some of these. As I mentioned earlier, I've been involved in other projects where the community has pushed back. They've gotten lawyers, and it's become, sort of a lot of concessions have been done by the developer. And while I see some have been done here, I think there could be more opportunity for discussion within the 30-day period.
Commissioner Lantelmi.
I will not be voting in favor of this. I've participated on the SPRC. I was on Transportation Commission. I've looked at this. At this point, I believe the Planning Commission's job is done in that at least I have determined, my feeling is that this project now complies with the terms of the comprehensive plan and its various components. Rather than delay it here, that is a decision I believe that the county board can and should make. There is still time, and I expect that the developer and the community will continue to work over the next number of days and weeks until the county board acts. All parties have absolutely the right to go to the county board members, talk about their concerns, raise it to them. Their job will then be to evaluate that and to make a decision whether to approve or delay and ask for additional negotiations between the various parties. But I think I believe our job here is done in that this project as it stands now does comply with the comprehensive plan. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Weir was next, and then Commissioner Steinberger.
Commissioner Vedova, I hope that I understand, and I think I understand the concerns that animate the motion. My general concern with such motions is that I don't know what quantifiable metrics would make it would make it successful 30 days from now. What would change in the next 30 days, but that could. What are the triggers? What are the sort of gates that once accomplished, would you think would make you more comfortable? And that's I'm with the chair's blessing, I would be happy to hear your answers to that question. I pose it rhetorically because it's a general concern I have with motions to defer, and why I generally don't support them, because I just, by the time it comes to us, I don't know that many motions to defer at all, could lay out like this is what will make me happy by 30 days from now. And it's parallel to a discussion that I know that the board has had recently in the last few years too. So thank you.
Well, one of the things, and I know there could be multiple reasons, but this has not gone through the Housing Commission yet, and I think we would have a more expansive view for us to vote thereafter if we receive, if we can know how they vote. And while there may not be some, red trips wires that will say, oh, well, now we've moved this to this threshold, therefore now we can approve it. I get the sense that the community still feels certain uncertainty and if still doesn't quite feel comfortable with this project. And I don't think delaying it by 30 days is not going to help, sorry. By delaying it by 30 days, I think it could only help make the community more comfortable. I think there could be more engagement with the applicant, with the community, and for them just to feel a little more comfortable. To me, my main focus is how the community is feeling so that they are comfortable with it. I understand that, from whether it meets the master plan and if it meets the current conditions and everything, but I just personally don't think that at this juncture, I've seen sufficient. And I think that will be honestly for the community to decide, not for me to decide. I think they've already made some progress with the applicant. And if we're talking about the list of things that would be sort of triggers to say that we've moved forward, I think the community has spelled out those triggers, and I would want to see that those have been addressed in a manner that, again, does not necessarily sort of give in to everything they're saying, but there's been more conversation. I've often heard good public policy is when everyone is unhappy with the result. And right now, I'm just only seeing one side that's quite unhappy. So that's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Steinberger.
So I think that I will be voting against the motion to defer. What I've seen in the last several days, weeks, what have you, is a very intensive and large amount of engagement. And I think that really to say we'll put that on hold for 30 days to do kind of unknown further outreach, I think actually loses momentum. And I think we do have a lot of meaningful change in dialogue. I think what would end up happening with a 30-day delay is we would be back here, people saying, well, we need another 30 days. I don't, we didn't get X, Y, or Z, or we didn't. And what I've seen instead happen in a concentrated period of time, for example, over the last week, is that a huge amount of progress in my mind has happened in terms of getting to a point, again, I'm not going to call them community benefits, but getting to a point where there is meaningful engagement on some of the, key concerns of the community, and I think commitments to explore what longer term impacts, and conversations can take place. So for that reason, county board can do whatever county board wants. They're elected. I view my role as a planning commissioner here, advise, review what's before me in terms of the proposal and make a recommendation to the county board. I have the information that I feel necessary to make that recommendation to the county board at this point in time. And then the county board can decide that they would like to sit on this, put it in an egg, roll it off a mountain. That's their decision. But that's not for me in this role as a planning commissioner to do. And so I will be voting against that motion. Thank you.
Okay, so I think it's time for a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Nay.
Commissioner Weir.
Nay.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Nay.
Commissioner Bagley.
Nay.
Commissioner Guevara.
Yeah.
Commissioner Berkey.
Nay.
Commissioner Striner.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Nay.
And Commissioner Peterson, nay. So the nays have it. Okay. So the staff motions, we have one that relates to the GLUP, one that relates to the MTP, and then one that relates to the specific project with all the amendments that were circulated earlier. Are you all comfortable covering the GLUP and the MTP and then going to the site plan with the amended motions? Okay, perfect. So Commissioner Robertson, can you do your motion?
Yes. We move that the Planning Commission recommends that the county board adopt the general land use plan amendment to change the land use designation for an approximately 1.44 acre parcel located at 2480 South Glebe Road, RPC number 31-034-025, from service industry to medium residential.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi seconds. Do you want to speak to your motion, or is it self-evident?
I think it's self-evident, nothing to say further.
Thank you. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Weir.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Nay.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Streiner.
Nay.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Peterson is aye. Okay, the motion passes. Next
I have
motion.
another motion. We move that the Planning Commission recommends that the County Board adopt the Master Transportation Plan Map Amendment to add a new segment of South Garfield Street, new segment of 25th Court South, and a new street titled South Fillmore Court, located in the vicinity of 2480 South Glebe Road, RPC number 31-034-024 and 025.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Lantelmi seconds. Any discussion?
Not for me.
Okay, let's go to a vote. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Weir.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Nay.
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Streiner.
Nay.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Peterson, aye. Okay, so the next motion I will introduce, and then Commissioner Robertson will offer the list of amendments addressing the site plan conditions that we were discussing throughout the meeting. So I think when we're doing the amendments, we'll do them one by one and vote on them one by one, and then head back to the main motion. Does that sound logistically correct to everyone?
One more time?
So I'll introduce the motion. Commissioner Robertson's going to introduce an amendment to the motion. Then we'll go through the up to 9 amendments one by one and vote on all of those. And then I think we go back to the main motion and approve it as amended.
Okay, is the list of 9 motions the thing that you shared that document on?
Yes.
Is there any scenario in which we don't have to do those individually? Like, could you do?
Yeah,
those
we
as a
could do
slate?
them as a slate if
I had
everybody
read them
agrees
as a
them.
slate of
Okay,
motions, so I
yeah.
was just confused when you said 9.
Okay, well, we can do that. We can read them as a slate if everyone thinks that they all look good. Okay, we'll do it as a slate then. All right, thanks for saving us time. Okay, so I move the Planning Commission recommend that the County Board adopt SPLA 23-00053 Site Plan Amendment SP number 111 to construct up to 531 residential units with modifications for additional density, lot area per unit, lot coverage, reduced residential parking ratios, required loading spaces, density exclusions, and other modifications necessary to achieve the proposed development located at 2480 South Glebe Road, RPC number 31-034-024-025. So now you
Yeah,
do an
Madam
amendment.
Chair, I have an amendment.
Okay.
I need yours for number 9. I move that
Do
we.
we have a second?
Oh, sorry.
Do we need a second? Devanshi told me I don't need a second. Okay.
We
Okay,
don't,
so-
there's not a motion to amend absent a second.
I will second.
Okay, I need Commissioner Berkey seconds. Thank you.
I have a motion to amend your motion with the following conditions. Number 1, on-site construction activity will commence no earlier than 2 p.m. and end by 9:00 p.m. on Sundays. Further, upon notice from the Lomax AME Zion Church, the developer shall work to accommodate and minimize such construction efforts during the time of funerals held at the church. Number 2, the developer agrees to hold meetings to provide updates on the status of construction and address any impacts to the Lomax AME Zion Church that have arisen as a result of construction. These include but are not limited to remedying any impacts on the existing cemetery, cleanup of any dust or debris on the Lomax AME Zion Church property or building, and remedy any rodent or pest issues that may arise as a result of construction. Number 3, the project shall include a permanent barrier no less than 8 feet in height along the property line between the property and the Lomax AME Zion Church to protect the historic cemetery. Number 4, if approved by both the Historical Affairs and Landmark Review Board and the Lomax AME Zion Church, the developer agrees to design and construct at its sole cost and expense a gate or other barrier within the existing arch leading to the cemetery at the Lomax AME Zion Church. Number 5, the developer agrees to design and construct at its sole cost and expense signage on the property of the Lomax AME Zion Church, identifying the church and cemetery as private property for which no trespassing is permitted. Number 6, conduct traffic monitoring at 1 year in addition to 2, 5, and 10 years, and implement additional mitigation as needed. Number 7, if approved by the Lomax AME Zion Church, the developer agrees to commission public art that honors the history and contribution of the Lomax AME Zion Church in the Green Valley community. Number 8, the developer agrees to provide the Green Valley Civic Association with quarterly use of its community room for association meetings or events. And number 9, the developer agrees to include a mid-block crossing across 24th Street South.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second.
Got me.
Commissioner Lantelmi, gotcha. Okay, any discussion on these? Commissioner Berkey?
Only on the last, I think, number 9. Why would it be that we would be asking the developer for the mid-block crossing and not the county?
Because they usually pay for the transportation updates. We can ask the county. We can amend that. But developers usually pay for any transportation enhancements related to their project, right?
Do they typically pay for something like that?
Hey, if they'll save the county $50, I'm happy.
Okay.
Hold on, the county staff doesn't support it. So we're asking the developer to pay for something that doesn't have the support of county staff.
Ain't life grand?
We can remove that one if the commission as a whole doesn't want to include that one.
I move to remove that, to remove the last amendment.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, Commissioner Berkey seconds. So we vote to remove that last one from the slate.
Now the slate is 8 things.
Yeah, well, we have to vote to see if the slate's 8 things. Okay, so voting to have the slate be 8 things. Commissioner Lantelmi?
Nay.
Nay. Weir?
Aye.
Steinberger?
I think I'm confused what I'm voting on.
Do you or do you not want the mid-block crossing? Do you want the mid-block crossing?
It's
Sorry,
a motion to sever.
it's a reverse.
It's a motion to sever. What the motion does is we deal with the 8, and then we come back to the 9th
If
one.
that's the motion, then I'm okay with that.
We're doing a motion.
I'm not naying. I'm just, if we come back to it later.
Yeah, I didn't want to
Okay.
get rid of it and not come back to it.
So we're
Okay,
approving the 8.
Motion to sever. So
Motion to
approve
sever.
only the 8.
Okay, we're just voting on the 8.
Yes, yes.
Aye.
We're not voting on the 8 right now.
we're
We're voting
voting-
on whether we should only vote on
Whether it
8.
should be voting on 8 versus handling the 9th separately.
So we're not substantively voting. This is just on the.
We're
in
gonna,
other words,
so
it's
we're
it's a
voting
motion
on,
vote.
do you only want to consider 8, yes, no, and
Yes,
then we will
okay,
vote on
aye,
the
aye.
8.
I'll
Okay,
consider
aye.
8, aye.
Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Striner?
So we're voting for 8.
Yes, just to go down to 8.
Procedural motion.
Aye.
Okay, and I say aye. Okay, so now we will vote on the 8, not including the mid-block crossing. Any final discussion? Okay, do I need a second? Did I already get one? Somebody just say,
You have a seconded motion that is amended so that we will discuss the 8 and then come back separately on the 9th.
okay, so Commissioner Lantelmi on the 8 site.
Aye.
Okay, aye. Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Steinberger? Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara?
Abstain?
Okay, Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Striner?
Abstain.
Okay, Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
And I also say aye. Okay, so the 8 are a part of the amended motion now. Now we will go to the 9th one about the mid-block crossing. So we go straight to a vote on that? Is that sound correct?
Can you read it one more time?
The developer agrees to include a mid-block crossing access, a mid-block crossing across 24th Street South.
So, can I make a motion to amend that? Instead, so currently the language is developer agrees to support, to include.
A mid-block crossing.
Developer agrees to support a mid-block crossing in conjunction with discussions with county staff. How do people feel about that?
Well, county staff have already said they don't want it, so.
Well, that's a real short discussion then. Okay, withdrawn.
Okay, so we are going to vote on the developer agrees to include a mid-block crossing across 24th Street South as part of the amended motion. Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Weir.
Nay.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Abstain?
Okay, Commissioner Bagley.
Nay.
Commissioner Guevara.
Abstain?
Okay, Commissioner Berkey.
Nay.
Commissioner Striner.
Abstain.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And I will also say aye. So 1, 2, 3 ayes and 3 nays, so it fails. Okay, so now, did I get my numbers right? Yes. Okay, so now we will go back to the main motion as amended with these 8 amendments. And we can vote. Yes.
Madam Chair, and I did have the amendment.
So I think you do yours after this
Okay,
motion.
sounds good.
Okay. So Commissioner Lantelmi.
Aye.
Commissioner Weir.
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Abstain?
Commissioner Berkey.
Aye.
Commissioner Striner.
Nay.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Peterson is aye. Okay. And now Commissioner Guevara had another motion she wanted to introduce. Oh, and we also had one. This one.
Oh, that's right.
Okay. Commissioner Guevara, would you like to go?
Yes. I motion that the Planning Commission recommends to the County Board and directs staff to explore feasibility of creating a community land trust that would have the ability to buy vulnerable properties in historically Black neighborhoods to redevelop them to serve the neighborhood.
Second. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Just because of the ongoing topics that we had tonight, I think because of the gentrification issues and because I think we need to protect our Black neighborhoods, I think something in line with a community land trust would be beneficial.
Okay, thank you. I will also just add, we had a nearly identical motion during our missing middle discussions. So we have supported something similar in the past. And I think also that it's important to consider progressive ideas like this in pursuit of preventing gentrification and protecting our historically Black neighborhoods. Any further comments before we go to a vote?
Would we want to expand it to really any underserved community?
I would be open to that, although, oh my God, now we're going to get into a discussion of BIPOC. And I'll keep it as Black communities right now, since this is given the current topic, but I would be open to exploring that with different projects.
Okay, Commissioner Berkey.
Yeah, so question for Commissioner Guevara. So is this intended for Green Valley, or is this applicable countywide?
It would be Rim Valley, Halls Hills. I'm thinking of that particular area in specific.
Okay. So I'll just note then, I appreciate the follow-up. I strongly believe in the idea of exploring community land trusts. I think we need to do it. I know staff has looked at it. I think it's just not necessarily at the top of the work plan, as we've talked about. So I think I will be unlikely to support the motion, not because I don't believe in the idea of exploring it, just more that I don't know that this is necessarily, I hate to say like a form. I don't know that this is necessarily germane to what we're doing here. I want to think about this because I do really support the idea. And so this is always the challenge being on Planning Commission is where do you support the idea? So that's, anyway, I got to think about it. That's my thought process. But I do support the idea in general. Thank you.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Yeah, I feel like, and I know that this idea or something similar to it has come up in other contexts before, I do kind of feel like I'd almost want to be more educated on it in the context of sort of like even like preliminary information, like from staff or something on sort of what their review and study of this would look like and what some of the parameters on that would be before I kind of support it as a concept. I don't know. I think I need more time to think about it too a little bit. I'm probably going to abstain.
I align myself with Commissioners Berkey and Steinberger. I'll probably vote no on this.
Commissioner Weir.
I'm going to oppose this only because I have said over and over again that I believe that the time to weigh in on work plan is at the work plan meeting. I will not be on the commission when the next work plan meeting comes up, but if it is recommended, I will show up and give public comment in support of it at the, at the next time that the work plan is updated, because I do believe in it. But I have taken the position in the past, and I think it's the right position to take, that we do our best to avoid recommending additions to the work plan outside of that venue. But I won't be on the commission, but I will give public comment at SPRC or at LRPC in support of it, in 9-10 months.
Commissioner Streiner, and then we will go to a vote.
I just wanted to associate myself with Commissioner Lantelmi's comment about expanding it to just underserved communities more generally. I think that's a little more broad and more catch-all.
Okay, Commissioner Guevara.
I am happy to make that amendment. Would we feel comfortable in saying that we would want county to review it as opposed to just voting on the motion right now to, I'm not quite articulating it, but hopefully, because I know people are saying they want more information, and so at least for the county to look into it, I suppose. I'm not articulating it quite well, but.
I mean, I intend to support the original motion, so.
Oh, yay, okay, then let's keep it.
Or with marginalized communities, swapped out.
Traditionally underserved, whatever term we want to use, I think it's just good to widen the net.
Okay.
You still have to modify the motion.
Yeah, there's some procedural stuff, so how would you like to proceed?
What are my options?
Proceed as is or modify, and then we need a second.
It means what language are the choices to put into it?
What are we voting on?
I believe the ideas were minority
Okay,
communities
let's
or
go to
underserved.
underserved.
Historically underserved.
Yeah.
Historically underserved.
Okay.
There we go.
So can we read the new motion, and then we will get a second?
Are you withdrawing the original motion to replace this, or are we seeking unanimous consent to amend the current motion?
I am seeking unanimous consent to amend the original motion. Okay, it's so approved. Commissioner Guevara, would you like to?
Can we, hold on just a second. Mr. Pfeiffer, were you able to capture that?
I was not.
Okay.
We'll have to revisit the tape.
Okay.
But perhaps it would help, Commissioner Guevara, if you could reread the motion as amended.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, so Planning Commission recommends that the county board direct staff to explore the feasibility of creating a community land trust that would have the ability to buy vulnerable properties in historically historically underserved neighborhoods to redevelop them and to serve the neighborhood. And to redevelop them, I suppose. Yes, sorry.
Okay, second. Okay, are we comfortable going to a vote? Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi.
Okay, since you've broadened it, I can now vote in favor. Aye.
Okay, aye. Commissioner Weir.
Abstain.
Commissioner Steinberger.
Abstain.
Commissioner Bagley.
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara.
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey.
Abstain.
Commissioner Streiner.
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson.
Aye.
And Commissioner Peterson is aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 ayes and 3 abstentions. Okay, that passes. And our last motion of the night, please go ahead, Commissioner Robertson.
I move that the commission, that it is the sense of the commission to welcome the expression of intent from the applicant to explore opportunities to provide additional affordable housing in this project, as well as support the Lomax AME Zion Church's child care facility.
I will second that. Chair prerogative.
You're even supposed to second as chair.
Really?
Yeah, you're supposed to just run the meeting and stuff. You don't make motions, you don't
All right,
chair.
well, you know what? We're moving on. Any discussion on this topic?
Not for me.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi?
Aye.
Commissioner Weir?
Aye.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Aye.
Commissioner Bagley?
Aye.
Commissioner Guevara?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Aye.
Commissioner Streiner?
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson?
Aye.
Commissioner Peterson, aye. It passes. Okay, thank you very much to everybody who is part of this meeting.
I'm sorry, don't hate me. Remember, I had the final one.
Okay.
Okay, just another motion. I move that the Planning Commission recommend to the County Board to review the Affordable Housing Master Plan, as well as any other relevant county planning documents to identify opportunities for amending them to address the effects of gentrification in Arlington's historically marginalized communities.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Streiner seconds. Would you like to speak to your motion?
Just because we're at the end of the day, I think it speaks for itself.
Okay, any comments or questions about the motion? Commissioner Berkey?
I will likely again oppose this motion, not because I don't have deep concern for the Affordable Housing Master Plan, which does merit review since it will be 10 years this September that it was passed, that I just don't know that this is necessarily the place to direct staff or ask staff to look at it, considering we have the work plan session. So that's why, not on the merits, but just where we're discussing it is the reason why I would likely oppose. Thanks.
Okay, are we ready to vote? Okay, Commissioner Lantelmi?
Nay.
Commissioner Weir?
Abstain.
Commissioner Steinberger?
Nay.
Commissioner Bagley?
Abstain.
Commissioner Guevara?
Aye.
Commissioner Berkey?
Nay.
Commissioner Streiner?
Aye.
Commissioner Robertson?
Nay.
And I will abstain. So we've got 1, 2, ayes. So I think it fails. Okay. All right. Thank you to everybody who has been here tonight, who came out and spoke on public comment. We really appreciate the work that you're doing to serve your communities, to be involved with our process. It was a really long night, and so I am grateful for you sticking it out. You do have more opportunities to weigh in. This will go to the Housing Commission later this week. It will go to the County Board. Both welcome your continued public comment and advocacy. Please do take advantage. We really respect your contributions to the community, and we hope some of the work that we did here tonight helped make the project feel like it was going to be a bit of a better project for your community. Thank you to staff for all of the work that you did on this. Thank you to the applicant for your flexibility and continuing to address these community concerns and any work that you continue to do over the coming weeks to address them. And if the project is approved, being a good neighbor to the community and making sure it is a long-lasting partnership. And thank you to all of my colleagues. This is one of our latest nights in a while, and thank you to staff for staying. We do have a little bit of public business that we have to get to, and I hope we will do it very quickly so we can all go home, but thank you. Okay, so approval of meeting minutes. We have, I think, January, February, and March with the...
Just February and March.
No, we didn't. Wait. We've got
Two in February,
two Februarys.
one in March.
One in March.
That's it.
That's it, okay. So 2 Februarys, 1 in March, with some edits that I sent over. So colleagues, I ask for your unanimous consent to approve the minutes. So moved. So moved. Okay. Mr. Pfeiffer, any staff updates?
No staff updates.
No
Thank
staff
you.
updates. Beautiful. LRPC report. Can you email us, Commissioner Steinberger? Unless there's anything
We
urgent.
had the meeting where we talked about the work plan.
Okay.
For
Perfect.
the year. We did that. It's a plan. It'll happen.
And you'll email us about any upcoming meetings, any rosters to approve? No. Okay. SPRC report, you can email us.
No changes since the last time. There is an SPRC this Thursday for 1 Roslyn, next Monday with a walking tour at 5, and then the meeting at 7 for Shirlington House, and then the next day, April 1st, walking tour at 5, and the meeting at 7 for Inn of Roslyn. Thank you.
Okay, and no rosters for SPRC. ZOCO report, anything urgent, or can you email us?
We haven't had any meetings lately. We're still waiting on the work plans to come together.
And MTP update, you asked us to help you with the homework.
Yes, and I still need help with the homework. So whenever you all get the chance, please respond to that email. We have our next meeting coming up in May, and the homework is due at the end of the month. So just your quick comments on the goals that we have set up in the preliminary discussion. That's all I'm asking.
Thank you. Form-based code AUG. Nothing. Okay. And PFRC, Commissioner Steinberger? That's me again. Aren't you? PFRC?
No, we've had no
it's you.
meetings.
Okay.
We had no meetings, okay. It's not me.
No meetings.
It's,
Okay,
yeah,
no meetings. Okay, and we also have to update our liaison assignments or agree them. Okay, so I seek your unanimous consent to accept the updates to the community liaison assignments that was sent to you. Okay, so moved. Thank you again to staff, applicants, public speakers. Tonight's hearing summary will be presented to the county board at the upcoming meeting. When is their upcoming meeting?
April 5th.
April 5th. This meeting is in recess adjourned. Thank you.
No recess, please.
Oh, sorry. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
No. Go home, everybody.